don't know if that does anything, but it looks scary.
Mm-hmm.
He'll take e6 with check. Okay. Again, this is the only thing keeping Levon going here is the fact that Wesley only has 22 seconds.
Yep. And now you don't need to do anything. You can just go a3, king a2. I mean, eventually you want to get your bishop to this diagonal, but I think this is essentially resignable. Levon's probably not going to resign just because of Wesley's clock situation, but he might look at this and say, this is just too disgusting to play at this point.
Yeah. It's too hard to play. The king on h7 is frozen, guarding the knight. The knight on h7 is frozen because it's pinned. We've got frozen 2. I hear they're making a third sequel. Wow, that's going to be wild. What are Elsa and Anna going to get into next? Sorry. We got bishop c2 mate. Let's go. That's explosive. Booyah. King takes g6. Bishop c2 is checkmate on the board. I think Levon resigns here. He does, and we move on. Shout out to the first win of the day from Wesley So. He gets the decisive result in his favor, and he has a 2-1 lead.
Absolutely incredible game, and just the cherry on top there. And Levon is going to be kicking himself because he had a chance there after Wesley missed f6. He had that rook takes c4 idea. He played it in the wrong order, and Wesley consolidated it beautifully, even with 20 seconds on the clock. And now we have a fried liver, a pretty rare guest at the highest level. But this is Wesley's recommendation in his 1e4 chessable course, so he knows this very well.
Yeah, he knows these positions for black super well. I wonder if partly he jumped in as hard as he did, became a bit of an expert on the black side, because there was a period, remember, where Hikaru Nakamura was playing the fried liver, right? And sometimes you look back at why would someone have studied it as closely as they did. I think Wesley was trying to be as well prepared as he could be, and now his chessable course is phenomenal. It basically is the Bible of how to play against the fried liver, if I don't say so myself. Oop, bishop f3, not so good.
Bible or not, I mean, he put his knight on h3, which is a pretty unorthodox way of handling these positions. I just think that black can grab the knight on c3 and play queen h4 and exert massive pressure on this knight. And the only way out is back through g1, which will leave the king essentially a sitting duck in the center.
Oh, agreed. No, and I was saying Wesley as black is the one who has the Bible to follow on chessable.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I was thinking Wesley is white. Wesley's black. I don't know if it's a wise decision to play it against him.
Yeah, okay, well, now we've got weirdness with f5 coming.
Ugh. e4. What is Levon doing here?
e4. You can't take it twice because you'll lose something in the center, I would assume.
Queen h4, I think, might fork f2 and e4 there. I just wouldn't take because that looks like a disgusting position.
This looks super rough for white. Yeah, this is why you don't. I mean, Wesley is he's a fried liver specialist, so this is
with both
colors, and doing well. Levon backs up the bishop. Queen f6 looks like it's easy fun. Although white will play d4 and it's not over, so we shouldn't necessarily say it's over yet. But this is not a good start for Levon. I think there's, the general storylines coming in, if you missed our previews, were that Wesley would probably be the favorite with every one of the faster time controls. And if he has a lead after the 5-minute portion, then we're really looking at the fan prediction coming true, which fans voted Wesley as a 70% plus favorite in this match.
And the big problem in this position is that now that white's played h4, trying to generate a little bit of breathing room for his knight, it's not like if white castles kingside, then all problems are solved. Far from it. I mean, black has still so many ways that he can attack the kingside. So I don't think Wesley needs to hurry here. I think he should just play Wesley style with bishop e6, c5. Excellent move. Maybe preparing to deploy his bishop on the long diagonal. Also preventing d4. Man, something has gone just terribly, terribly wrong here for Levon. But he's still trying. He's still kicking. And, every one of these games has ultimately gotten double-edged in.
That's true. Although I think you highlighted it well. Part of the reason white's position is so tough is that it's not even like you see a knockout blow for black. Although, by the way, bishop e5 is kind of hard to deal with. I don't know how you're guarding c3. Even if you don't see a knockout blow for black, white is undeveloped. King is in the center. Structurally, white is worse. This is just not a fun position.
And f4 is an excellent move here, and Wesley plays it. I mean, there's no calculation to do here because anytime white plays pawn takes e4, the rook moves into d8, and then the threats down the d-file are too much to bear. We're entering resignable territory here. And Danny, look at this position. If white castles here, I'm just going to put this on the board. F3. I mean, this just symbolizes how destructive black's attack is. You can't take on F3 because you drop the knight with checkmate. You can't not take on F3 because you drop the bishop.
Your bishop is hanging. It's over. This is a horrible position for white. And this is also one of those games where you look back on, I think if you evaluate yourself in the mirror after an SCC match, Danya, a lot of players have those games where they lose a tough one and then they make a bad opening choice in the next game, right? They haven't emotionally or mentally recovered. Look at what just happened. Levon just lost a wild game as black, and then he made a poor opening choice. Like against Wesley, who knows this stuff inside and out with both colors. You mentioned the Chessable course. This is just a bad choice for him, and he's now going to be down 2 games in the match, basically only because he chose a bad opening.
Yeah, and it's not tilt. I think we should introduce a new term, something between tilt and making, an unwise choice. You just don't put as much thought into your opening choice following a disappointing game. This is a common thing, Danny. We do see this. I think you pointed it out very astutely. And I think, Levon, one thing's clear. Do not repeat the fried liver unless you look it up during the break and make serious changes. But this whole knight h3 line, no, that's not going to cut it.
No, and literally black is blowing him off the board here. Note he just takes d4, doesn't care about the knight on a5 because the rook on a1 is hanging. And again, this is like, as you said, it's not tilt, but it's like a decision you make when you're hungover, I guess. A bad breakfast that then makes you feel it in the afternoon. You made a bad decision the night before, then you have that peanut butter burger with a fried egg on it. Right? Because you made a bad decision the night before. Guess what? Now you're sick in the afternoon. Okay? So I don't know where I went with that metaphor, but I think it's actually pretty spot on.
I think it is too. And can I show a line that's also spot on? Black can play F3. And just look at this. Okay, Wesley's going for the extra piece, but he could have done this, okay? Talk about hungover. White's going to be hungover for... White king is going to be hungover for ages when you get it checkmated like that. But instead, Wesley, just doing Wesley things. He took on B1. Okay, what did he do? He played bishop c3,
simple chess,
and now he's going to play f3. Also good.
Also good. The simple approach. Knight c4, as simple as it is also pretty awesome because he goes f3, but it threatened the fork, and if you parted ways with the light square bishop, the mating attack continues. So, anyway, it is tough because these are mistakes that players of Levon Aronian's level rarely would make in an OTB event with a rest day in between. You lose a game, you take a nice walk on the beach, right? You stop the bleeding mentally, and then you recover. Here he's really going to regret this second game because a 2-game deficit against Wesley So in the 5-minute portion is not how he drew it up at home.
And the 3-point rule, right? You suddenly, and this is the thing about the SCC, is that these deficits, they creep up on you, and you think, there's plenty of time, I don't have to worry. We just started the match, and barrel of a 3-point deficit against, one of the most consistent players of all time in Wesley So. And I really want people to notice how Wesley is converting this advantage. No crazy tactics. I think he's just going to pick up the pawn in h5, ultimately hunt this king down. Wesley is a freaking boat. Converts these positions. Yep.
And we've seen a few of the 4 games. We've seen a few missed opportunities from Wesley, but overall we've seen just a super accurate brand of chess that he's known for. And this one feels like white never had a chance. We've already sort of we've beaten this one to death, if you will. We'll stop driving it home. But it's sad when you lose a game, and really it was a decision that had one moment. You just don't play this line when you're not ready to play it. It's a bad decision you made because you lost the game before, and we hope Levon recovers and keeps this thing close because that's it. It's in the books. And here goes Wesley with e3 on move 1.
You never know if that move is a mouse slip or if it's intentional, but E3 has very little independent value because most of the time it just transposes into a Kali system, which is exactly what Wesley is playing. Kind of a more modest version of the London system, but now we're entering sort of Benoni territory.
Yeah, this is awkward, reversed Benoni, 94. Computer doesn't even like it. It's one of those weird, tricky lines. You're going to beat bishop d3 with f5. I don't know if we want to show it, but that's the only way. Oh, it's maybe going to happen on... Oh, plays knight d6.
Whoa.
f5 is another one of the moves there. Maybe even the better one for black, but this is already a good line for white.
No, I mean, Levon trying to unbalance the position kind of artificially, but I don't love the way that he is doing it. Because not only can Wesley play c4, Wesley can also play e4, but then you have to evaluate the consequences of black playing c4. You could get a trade of the e4 pawn for the c4 pawn, and at the end of that line, the e7 pawn is going to become weak. So I'm just going to put this on the board. e4, c4. Oh, apparently e5 is very good. And Danny, look at this position. Takes, and that bishop on c8 is going to be buried behind a pile of rubble. The bishop's going to come out to f4. This is nasty, but Wesley taking a different route. Let's go back to the live board. He's gone knight a3 just to take the sting out of the move c4.
Unorthodox opening from Levon Aronian. Wesley also going a little bit off the normally beaten track here with knight a3. That e4 line was fun, and not just because you went full Hikaru there for a minute with a takes reference. Good job there. We've got e4 on the board now. I expect c3 to be played, though, instead of c4. Keep it flexible. Keep it funky. c3, then you can go back with bishop f4. What do you think?
I think you should play c3, and I think that is the best way to take the sting out of black's pawn advance, right? c4, you drop back. b4 gives you the c4 square. Wesley going directly for the confrontation, and we are going to get a mutual exchange of knights, much like the line that I showed earlier. Not sure who this favors. What do you think, Danny?
This is nuts. It's funny. Levon instantly played b4, and it gives white a big advantage. If e takes d6, b takes a3, my human brain points out that the b2 pawn is pinned by that bishop on g7. So I'm like, this looks kind of tricky for black. But there's moves like bishop g5, and whose pin matters more. Maybe that's the move here. Bishop g5. If you take b2, I take e7, or I just play rook b1. I don't even know.
Well, this is a problem. Actually, bishop g5 straight away is very much possible. And here's what I think Levon forgot about, Danny. I'm going to put this on the board. Bishop g5, he thinks, I play a takes b2, and pawn takes e7 is not a problem. But white just slides the rook to b1, and if black has to play this move f6, just look at black's pieces. Nothing's developed. Everything's uncoordinated. You could throw this move in, and you can't take on d6 because of the discovery. It's not about something specific. It's just about the fact that black can't get his freaking pieces out.
Yeah, and now you're watching out for things on the diagonal like bishop e4, queen on d5. There's all kinds of problems if you ever move that f6 pawn, as you were pointing out. So, wow, Wesley plays rook b1 first, which is an interesting change in the move order, but if a takes b2, we will see bishop g5. And if you take d6, my guess is, I guess white will just take a3 and then use the b file. Danya, let's highlight one of the hidden factors here. You mentioned that black is not using his pieces. That pawn on d5 is a literal thorn. Not in someone's shoe, but like a thorn in their pants or their shirt. It's like the pawn on d5, there is no knight coming to c6. There is no development for black. Everything on the queen side is completely stuck by that small pawn.
Yeah, the wheels are starting to come off of Levon Aronian's chess here. B takes a3 is such a lovely move because it's not about the pawn structure. It's about the fact that the b7 square is under control. Not that bishop b7 would solve any of black's problems. White just goes c4. Instead, Wesley goes b3. He's going for the greedy approach. He's going to try to win the pawn back while keeping the integrity of his structure. I don't like that as much, Danny, though, because it's given black a little bit of more breathing room on the queen side.
I agree. I think it was Wesley maybe trying to be a little bit too precise. We applaud him for his accurate brand of chess. That feels like a little bit overkill there, given how tough it was for black to develop the queen side. At the very least, if I'm Levon, I'm like, man, my knight is gone, my rook is developed, I've got that dark square bishop. This is, despite what the eval bar says, this is still a game that white has to win all over again.
And he's playing against the bishop. That's the bottom line. That bishop is never going to get out via c8 as long as the d7 pawn is in existence. And it's in existence as long as the d6 pawn is in existence, which is in existence as long as the d5 pawn is in existence. And the d5 pawn is the most well-supported pawn on the board. So Wesley playing purely against this bishop, he's essentially playing with an extra piece, except bishop takes c4 could be a tactic in some situations, and that is why he's dropped his rook back to a defended square.
Man, you had me on a journey there. I thought we were fully existential with the comparisons of absurdism and nihilism. You're like, we're all in existence because we exist. Let's go. But I loved it. No, that was really actually instructive, that nothing will change as long as white has that pawn on d5, right? To kind of summarize, nothing will change about the future of that bishop. And that's why the eval bard loves white's position so much here, because you're basically playing down a minor piece.
And Levon's only chance to activate it is to take on c4. So for instance, if white plays knight e4 here, maybe, okay, rook e4 is a great move. Just get the queen out of there. And I would make some looked. Instead, Wesley doubles. This is almost resignable. I mean, now bishop takes e4 is never going to be a problem for white because there's no rook on the b file.
Yep. And even with that trade, I mean, this is just so tough for black because the knight on d2 guarding the b3 square means that rook and bishop are just, they're staring at a wall, right? Maybe it's a pretty wall. Maybe it's got some flowers on it. Maybe there's even a window, but it's a wall. And it's not going anywhere. And Wesley's in complete control.
Complete control. And g3, now he can play quietly. And we've observed this in all of the games that he's won, right? There's a tactical stage, there's a skirmish, and then Wesley knows exactly when to slow down, when to turn the engine off and start making these improving moves like h4, rook e3. This is where he enters boa constrictor mode, and this is where you realize that you've got absolutely no hope.
Yeah. Especially in blitz, where the time controls are not long enough to maybe come up with some sort of random idea. I mean, there's just like, even though I know Levon is up on the clock right now, it doesn't matter. It's not a big enough time advantage to really make a difference. Wesley just stole that pawn. Although it is funny, Danya, with that pawn gone, at least now there's hope. You could play d6 and the bishop could come from a6 back to c8 and try to get out. Of course, by then you'll have completely lost the game, but still, it's fun to point out.
Oh, and it's bad when one of white's pieces reaches an initial square of one of the opponent's pieces. That's just a universal sign that you might resist. Look, queen h6.
Look at that move.
And then knight f6 and rook e8. What a mating construct. Let me show this. Bang.
Yeah.
And then bang, knight sacrifice itself. Finish it, Danny. Boom.
Yeah, queen d2 is a subtle killer. A subtle dagger there. What a move by Wesley So. We see Levon brings the rook back to e8 to prevent that exact idea you just showed, but still, this queen is coming into h6. It's going to be glorious. Will the rook come to f4 next? Okay, actually, queen f4, interesting. I love the switch. You hit the rook with tempo, and you're threatening knight f6 and queen h6 mate. That's why it got the brilliant symbol. Look at that move. It's just over.
And you're threatening to put that bishop out of its misery, finally, by getting to d6. Levon, there's nothing to play for in this position. It's over, and he has just entered the territory of a 3-game deficit, Danny.
He just resigned, and the next game will start here in just a moment. Oh, wait, no, we have a break. We have a halftime break. There's Wesley So enjoying a 3-game lead, up 4-1. And a nice little set of trophies there in the background. Maybe he gets to add an SCC to his trophies this year. What do you think? No?
Without question. I mean, the way that he's playing right now, this is not going Levon's way at all. Yeah,
he's up 4-1 if you're just tuning in. It's unfortunate because it was such a close match after the first 2 3/4 games. Wesley So barely gets that victory in the third game, and it's kind of like some of the practical wheels came off from Levon Aronian, Don. He lost both those games. Quickly, your thoughts on what he needs to do to turn around?
I think that he needs to change his openings. He is completely off his mind in the openings. He's gotten lost positions in these last 3 games. He needs to play his normal repertoire, Danny.
Yeah, he does.
And, I think he's trying to win it all in one game.
You can't win it all in one game, but we have a lot of games left, everybody. Don't go anywhere. More from the Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase when we come back. Welcome, everyone. We are here with Judith Polgar, the legendary chess player, one of the greatest chess players of all time.
And I went my next move. I said, no, I'm not moving my queen. I'm not moving my bishop. but actually I'm going to give checkmate or winning great material. And I went knight e3. It works only that way. If you're an attacker, you sacrifice something, go all the way until the end. Don't chicken out in the meantime at some point, because many times there is a point there is no way back. It's only forward. How is it to play with Kasparov? When you saw him personally, he really had this incredible energy.
Judith, thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you're ready to dive into the past with us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very happy to share with you some of my most memorable games.
Become Chessable's next best-selling author. Enter the 2023 Create Your Own Course Challenge and earn a shot at $5,000. Here's your chance to bring that course in you to life. Share your passion for chess on an international scale. And bank while doing it. Zero course creation experience? No problem. Grandmaster Maurice Ashley will show you the contest mechanics. Then our team will guide you through the publishing process, step by step, like we've done for over 250 authors. And best of all, the winner will have their course presented by Grandmaster Maurice Ashley himself. Visit chessable.com/create to join.
Levon Aronian is currently down 4-1 to Wesley So here in this first round 2023 Speed Chess Championship matchup. But guess what? Guess what, Danya? Levon's been here before. He's used to close matches when it comes to his SCC events. Let's talk a little bit about that, because last time I checked, he's actually never lost a first round matchup.
That's a pretty crazy stat when you consider his opponents. I'm having a hard time reading that. Alireza Firouzja, never heard of him. Ian Nepomniachtchi,
a lot of consonants there.
He's played a bunch of amateurs. Damn, really not impressive at all.
Exactly. No, but jokes aside, Levon Aronian is used to close matchups. Not a single blowout on record there, even though he's gotten 4 wins. Although one name he hasn't played yet in a first-round matchup is the guy he's got today, Wesley So, who's playing a very accurate brand of chess, especially when you consider that Levon is giving him a good start. And I think your advice, right as we went to the break, is what he needs to change. Let's bottle it up on the openings, right? Get yourself in a maybe on a better starting foot, and maybe you'll be in a better position against Wesley.
As I said in the break, particularly this last game, he's trying to erase this deficit in 5 moves, right? You can't artificially unbalance the game against Wesley. Wesley's too good for that. So, Levon, get back to what you know. I would play 1e4, go for those Italians, try to squeeze out those long positional games, and I think Levon is going to respond. He's an experienced dude.
Well, he's played e4, so that's already maybe... He got e4 and he got a Sicilian in one game. You talked about it, a bit of an Italian approach as white against the Sicilian. We'll see what he chooses here. Go for some main lines in the open, or continue to stay on the sideline path.
Well, he got a good position, and continue to stay on the sideline path. This time a different sideline, the delayed Alipin as it's called, and obviously, knight takes e4, not possible because of the fork on a4.
Yeah. John just getting called out in chat for not knowing who guys like Alireza and Jan are. You know, it's so ridiculous that chess.com would put a guy like that on camera who doesn't even know who Alireza and Jan Nepomniachtchi are. You know,
get with the program, dude.
Get with the program. All right. So here we go. We've got another Italian structure. The bishop on e2 though versus c2. It didn't take that full path. So despite the fact that it's a very playable and comfortable position for white, it's also playable and comfortable for black. Not a lot of action yet on the board. Not a lot of tension in the center.
I'm giving up major Monday morning quarterback vibes here, but I really don't understand why Levon deviated from that Udasin Sicilian. I mean, he's playing a version of that I think is inferior, because Wesley can play pawn takes d4, and if Levon captures with the c-pawn, there's this incredibly nasty move, knight g4, which has to be reckoned with, and that already leads to some tactics which have to be calculated. Knight g4 immediately is also possible. I think Wesley has definitely solved all of his opening problems. And we're not even at move 10 yet.
I agree. And one of the funny things about this delayed d4 structure, whether you call it an Alipin or a Udasin Sicilian structure, I was just going to point out that now when black takes it, that knight on d2, Danya, is totally misplaced. You want that knight coming from b1 to c3 if you ever establish this two-pawn structure. And so the knight on d2 blocks the queen. It's not on its most active square, and here goes black blowing open the center, taking advantage, actually, of the ponies who are kind of passive on d2 and f3. Well, okay, the queen comes to f6 now, and there's 2 threats of a trade here. The knight could take on c4 or f3 next if you are black. The one thing I will say, though, in this transition is that it also left the d6 pawn weak, and we see right on cue Levon Aronian backs up the bishop to keep some pressure on the d6 pawn. So I definitely agree with what Don and I have been saying, that this is an opening win for black. Objectively, the computer also says black is fine. But it's not totally clear yet how black would convert on that advantage without the d6 pawn becoming just as much of a problem. So it'll be instructive to see how Wesley coordinates and develops. I start to think of moves like rook d8 to overprotect, but also even just bishop e6. Okay, he does play the first one I suggested, bishop e6. Maybe even better if there's an active way to get some pressure. The b2 pawn would obviously fall at the end of a lot of lines anyway if white took on d6. But rook d8 is the extra precise way to play. Next, you're looking to develop, make this knight make a decision, and at the end of these lines, if I can draw an arrow good, we have the b2 pawn under fire. So again, I'm with Danya that it hasn't been an opening victory for Levon probably in any game besides that Dawson Sicilian. So you're curious why he didn't go back to it, if there was something
You can hear me, Danny, right?
We are back, Danya. Thank you for your patience, everybody. And Mr. Naroditsky, while you were gone, we saw Wesley So increase his lead. He is now up by 4 games with a 5-1 deficit facing Aronian.
He is indeed, and Levon, I mean, I think his hand on his head kind of says it all. He's sort of shell-shocked by how it all has gone, and he's finally gotten a good position in Game 6, but I think he's messed it all up with his last move, knight to f6, Danny.
Yeah, he had an attack. I admit I wasn't following as closely as I normally would have. I know he had an attack.
It's one of those days. It's one of those days.
And he had some pressure, but with this last move, knight f6, the computer not so happy. Maybe the knight was meant for e5, according to our artificially intelligent overlord. Knight to f2 now played. The g4 pawn is weak. And although I'll say this, despite what the computers are saying, I think this is still a very, very tricky position. Wesley under 2 minutes. His king may be under fire here at some point. Mm-hmm. This is a fun one ahead.
It is, but this move knight f2 is a major thorn in black's side, because if you lose the g4 pawn, then your knight on f3 loses its support, and your whole king side potentially collapses. So Levon has to keep the fire burning, and I think the only way to do that is probably a move like knight h5 to open up an attack on this bishop. But once the bishop drops back to e3, I don't see a clear follow-up. I think he's going to lose this pawn on g4.
Yeah, it's funny. That bishop on f4 is just vulnerable. It's not defended, and it makes you scared, but there's nothing concrete to it, right? There's no knight takes d5 for black, because then the white knight will recapture and defend the bishop. There's also no knight takes e4, although it is a little bit tricky to go for something like that. Maybe if knight takes d4, yeah, just the g4 pawn hangs. What actually is the move on that? Queen takes g4.
What is the move? Yeah, let me play that move. Oh, it's knight takes g4.
And if rook takes f4,
looks just rook f3 apparently. Yeah.
And now all of a sudden there's all kinds of threats coming to the white king.
Oh my gosh! Look at this line: knight takes c4, queen e4.
There's knight f6 check. Oh my gosh!
Wow!
What a move that would be.
With a queen.
That's not outside the realm of possible here, because that's a move that's okay. Knight takes e4 is played. I was just saying that's a move that's really hard to see at the end of the line, right? It's easy for us with the computer.
Whoa!
Okay, wow. Wesley played queen g4, and then knight takes h2 is on the board.
Okay, but king h2.
Yeah, king h2 looks kind of simple, by the way. That's a whole piece.
And here's what Levon has missed. He can play rook takes f4 and bishop e5 and pick up white's queen, but white's going to get a kingdom and a horse. Actually, 2 horses for the queen, and I think Levon just underestimated the amount of material that he's giving up in exchange for the queen. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, although I'll say this. Whenever it comes to blitz, the queen is especially against an open king, often to be preferred. Now, against a player of Wesley So's caliber, and I make no arguments with the eval bar, white is completely winning here after knight f takes e4 and all that stuff. But I just want to point out that with no time on the clock and an open king and the queen staring you down, this isn't over. It's going to be a little scary.
Oh, it's definitely going to be scary, but it's going to be scarier for black than it is for white, because both kings are wide open. And the bigger issue is this knight on e4 diving into f6. You've got too many weak squares. You've got the other rook coming into g1. I think black is completely lost here. I just don't see how black scrambles this rook in a sufficient amount of time.
Yeah, completely agree. The more I look at it, and the more I realize that there really is no follow-up here. I mean, white is actually bringing the king to g3, just into the fray if you need to, and there's no real problems here.
It's over. King g2. Oh, king g2 ends the game because you can't take the queen. You drop the queen on h5. King g2 resigns.
It's just over. He'll resign. Knight f6 check, and it's over. Oh my God, he just walked right into it. Levon gives the look of a man who is not on form today, and he currently trails Wesley So 6-1. Shout out to that nice little game over modal. We get to see it in real time here. 6-1 is the score in our match. Levon Aronian is, well, this is not his day. I think he's going to lose in the first round of the Speed Chess Championship for the first time in his career. I don't see this one going the other way.
I mean, he needs to he needs to score half a point. I mean, forget about a point. He's losing game after game, regardless of the position. In the last game, he had an attack. He had what he wanted. And he's just not playing as nearly as accurately as Wesley in the critical moments of each game. He's making too many tactical mistakes. And Wesley is basically playing whatever the heck he wants and winning game after game. It's a 5-point lead.
Yeah, and that was just a huge blunder. I mean, he just walked right into a one-move night fork that you saw coming. And again, we all know what Levon Aronian is capable of, or we wouldn't be so surprised. But this is not his day. He's running up against a very formidable opponent, arguably the third best player in Speed Chess Championship history after two gentlemen known as Nakamura and Carlsen. So we knew this was going to be tough, but yeah, right now really tough.
Extremely tough, and Wesley kind of playing it calm in the next game. He is more than happy with a draw with the black pieces. We've got largely a symmetrical pawn structure. I think a slight edge for white because this pawn on c5 is a little bit weak. White's got better control of the e-file. So Wesley, he's got to tread carefully for the next couple of moves.
Yeah. A little bit of danger on a tactical level. Is he drinking a bottle of mustard? I sure hope not. Levon, don't go that far, buddy. Okay? That was not... I have never seen somebody put something that yellow in their mouth that wasn't a banana. I'm just going to say it.
Maybe it's a blended banana. It's banana juice.
It was. I don't know what he was drinking there, but I've never seen a bottle that color. Just going to say it. That wasn't in my daughter's Dora the Explorer lunchbox, you know? All right, Levon needs to pull it together. We love him. He's also just one of the kindest, classiest guys you ever have in chess. And so we know that this is painful for him, and no one would wish it upon him. But he's in control of his own destiny, Danya. He has to stop the bleeding. No one else can do it. He's got to pull it together here.
And he's not doing a bad job of it in this next game. I think he's got a pretty promising position. Wesley is struggling because he lacks space, and the bishop on e7 is under a lot of pressure from two different sources. You can play the move g5, and I think the situation might demand a move like g5 to free up that bishop, because if you go bishop d6 immediately, well, that's out of the question because you're allowing bishop takes f6.
He does it. You called it. You called it. G5 is on the board. Bishop g3 is the only move, and probably we see bishop d6, like you're saying.
And, I mean, white's just not got enough firepower, I think, to punish black for the weakness of the king side. And newer players will get really surprised at a move like g5 because you're advised against it. But, you know, Wesley, he's wearing the helmet of a professional. And this is a great instance where concrete considerations, Danny, override the sort of general advice.
Yeah, and the general advice, to elaborate on that, is don't push pawns in front of your king. And often that's really good advice, especially when there might be a chance for your opponent to get an attack. But I think to add more of the reasons he gets away with it, Danya, there aren't a lot of pieces on the board. In fact, another set of minors are about to be traded off once you see bishop g3 and bishop d6. And when you're in that spot, you can get away with breaking some of those rules. In fact, it might even be in your favor that your king comes to g7 and you almost start to expand and prepare for the endgame, right, Danya? So I think I'm just adding a little bit of why is Wesley able to break the rules and push a pawn in front of his king? Because if you look at the specifics, there's a lot of reasons to believe he can get away with it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think with every piece that's getting traded, he's getting away with it more and more. And I don't want to be the, I don't know what the word for it is. But just to add to your point, Danny, white is not entirely out of danger here. If the queens get traded, I would actually prefer black, because the pawn on c5, what used to be a weakness, eventually will become a strength, because the knight on f3 is restricted by black's encroaching pawns.
And if that pawn gets to c4, boom goes the dynamite, because the b2 pawn is backward, and a rook might come down to the second rank and hit the b2 pawn.
Without question. And the knight drops back to d2. I think Levon is recognizing that. And like I said, right now he needs half a point. Forget about the win.
Yeah.
Forget about the comeback. He's reeling. He's finding a way to lose every game. And I think he's actually doing a good job in this game of playing objective chess. The likeliest outcome here by far is a draw.
Yeah. I would say at this point, as you said, though, a draw is a win for Levon, given that he's lost how many games in a row? I think it's 4.
Yep.
And actually, no, it's 5. No, he's lost 5 games in a row. He's down by 5 games, and we were tied at 1 game apiece. So he's lost 5 games in a row.
Oh my God, mini adoption.
And it's you have to at some point just sort of stop the bleeding, right the ship, and then figure it out in a faster time control after you get a break. We are 15 minutes away from the 3-minute portion. Unfortunately for Levon Aronian, Wesley So is the most accurate 3-minute blitz player of all time, according to chess.com's algorithms in terms of how we measure this stuff. So it's a bit of out of the frying pan into the fire, to be honest, for Levon, but which is why I'm being so bold as to borderline call the match. I'm not supposed to do that as a commentator. I'm supposed to say drama, 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 greatest comeback of all time, which of course we can always see. But Wesley So is going to get better as the time controls get faster, and I am not looking at Levon Aronian on form today, Danya. That's why this thing feels so bad.
It feels bad, and forget about the lead for a second. Right, the way he's guiding the games in the direction he wants to guide them, and even when he's slightly worse, it feels like he's slightly better of a player who is in superior form. But wait a second, let's get the way that he's handled this endgame, and if his knight can get into f5 and start pressuring some of these weak pawns, even without the queens, maybe he's got a little minuscule plus. But I think Wesley's going to hold this together. I just don't see Levon winning this game.
You saw me make the chagrin after the queens came off, because even though I agree with you that even without the queens, the knight can still hop to f5 and target, it's not the same. You have 0 chances of taking advantage of an open exposed king when the ladies have exited the board. So, I think Wesley will hold it. Now, again, we said if Levon just draws, that's already a win, because he's lost 5 games in a row. Stop the bleeding, right?
Yeah.
Save Ferris, as they say, right? Tell me you get the reference Save Ferris, or I'm walking out of this studio.
I totally get that reference. I do get that reference. I've seen that movie probably 50 times.
Okay, you and I have had our moments where I've been worried about your lack of pop culture, but you passed that test. Thank you.
At least, the 80s movies I think I have mostly covered.
Okay, so why is that? I mean, you're 17 years old. Why are the 80s the movies you've seen?
I feel like that's what sort of my mom gave me to watch during tournaments when I was a teenager, were the 80s movies by John Hughes, Ferris Bueller, Sweet 16, 60 Candles, that kind of stuff. Right. So totally random that is not one of my many gaps in culture.
Checks out. No, I think that makes sense. I think I'm in a similar boat. Shout out to moms, proper education for their kids. All right, f4 played. Wesley is pushing the kingside pawns. Maybe he's got more ideas than just a draw. Of course, from a match perspective, he'd be fine with that, but he is expanding a little bit. The c5 pawn is going to be tender once that knight moves. I should just point that out. If knight d5, you got to deal with the c5 pawn and then evaluate. Yeah, here it comes. You got to evaluate the trade, or do you just play bishop d6? Indeed, he does. Ooh,
indeed, he does. And it's okay. The king is getting into the center, and if it can get to d5, again, this pawn on c5, right? That has been the source of literally all of Black's problems. If you could move it back to c6, you can basically offer a draw straight away.
Yeah. I like what you're pointing out, because I think, as commentators who are used to top players like Levon and Wesley holding games, we think draw. The engine says it's equal. But I think we should appreciate that 99.99% of the viewers would probably lose this game with either side if they were facing either of these players, right? That's not insulting. It's just the truth. And the reason for that is that this idea that pieces being traded in an equal position means a draw is just not true. The person who plays better wins in equal position. And I love this idea of the king coming to c4, to d5, and highlighting that just because there's equal material here doesn't mean white doesn't have chances. And especially when it comes to time on the clock. Look at this. This is getting a little bit riskier. And
Levon has to seize this opportunity, Danny.
Yeah, you got to get it. You have to at least draw, but if you can get a win here with Levon, the comeback has to start somewhere.
And knight c4, I thought he could have gone to d7 and targeted the pawn on c5. Instead, he goes the other way and tries to get over to e5 and essentially separate the king and the knight. But the king does have g5, Wesley holding it together, and the 30 seconds on Levon's clock. That's what really worries me. You could also lose this if you play knight e5 prematurely and let Black's knight jump into e3.
Yeah, and at the end of that line, the reason, everyone, is if bishop takes, pawn takes, you can't stop the queen from entering e1. So white and Black could both lose this one. I agree with you, Don. Knight d7. I don't know why he didn't. Knight d7 was definitely the try there. He's He's back to a position that's going to be hard to win.
And the problem is that you cannot take on c5. Well, you can, but you're allowing knight h4 and knight takes g2. So Wesley doesn't even really have to defend this pawn, and he recognizes that, but he's given white this f3 square for his knight, and once again, things starting to get very nasty here.
Well, now, if you just point out, if you go back to c7 to block e5, the bishop will take c5 because the knight on f3 guards h4. That's actually a huge thing. In fact, here comes knight e5 check, and Levon Aronian is in business. Look at him, playing tickle. We got a fork on c5 and f4. I don't care what the computer says. White is pushing. Here comes one pawn. And will he get more?
Will he get more? He's got 10 seconds. He's got to decide how he's positioning his king. c4, fixing the pawn on c5.
Okay, I'm
good chances here.
He has knight d7 now, and b6 is a problem in a lot of those positions.
He spotted it. He's winning now.
Knight d3, knight takes f4. Here comes knight to d5. Only winning. 5 seconds for Wesley.
Knight h5 apparently is the best move. That's crazy, but Wesley with drawing chances here. King e4.
King e4,
takes
but
bishop
b6
d4.
I think he might try b5. No, he goes backward.
King e4 again? I think Wesley might hold this. 1 second.
Oh my gosh. King d5.
Oh!
He living off
King
you
b4?
gotta move. He moved that with 0.5 seconds.
Wesley held it, b5.
Oh my gosh, Wesley So hold that draw. That is insane.
Whoa. And Levon was winning until the very last seconds.
Dude, what in the world just happened there? I'm like replaying everything about that. You know what's so crazy, your knight h5 idea? Because all it does is buy white 2 tempi by forcing the black king to take the h5 knight. It means the king is much further away from the c4 pawn. I didn't understand it when you first mentioned it, but there's no way you find that move with just seconds on the clock. And what an amazing hold from Wesley So.
Wow. He's a god. Wesley is a god, as someone in the chat points out. And if you can't win that game, that's the ultimate issue, Danny. You had everything in place to win that endgame. He let Black's king get too active. He let Black's king capture too many of White's pawns.
Oh, man. And even though I hear you, I will say, at the very least, if you're just focusing on the moment, right, mindfulness, lesson in stoicism, if you're Levon Aronian, here's what you're saying. Look, I had chances to win that game. I don't have time to analyze it now, but we all know I played much better. And the fact that I didn't lose is the first step toward a comeback, right? So you're like, hey, I'm focused on the positive, and at the very least, Levon Aronian showed his first signs of life in that game and definitely had chances to win, even though it got away from him.
Absolutely, and I like the choice of a King's Indian defense. Obviously, from an emotional standpoint, I'm a King's Indian player, but it is, I think, the most proven, objectively sound opening that gives you winning chances against d4 with Black. Except, what is going on here? The knight is hanging, the pawn is hanging. Wait, what do you do?
Yeah, what went wrong there? Suddenly,
Rookie 8, great move.
Rookie 8's a good move. E4 is hanging with check. If bishop takes g4, what are we seeing there?
Okay, so bishop g4, I'll play it on the board. Rook takes e4 check, forking not only one bishop, but also the other bishop. That is the point. So Wesley can't take the knight.
Okay. What a tricky move that was.
But he can castle. He can give up the e4 pawn and then take on d4.
God, I feel like we've just, gone from high-octane drama to, like, both players being super accurate out of the opening. Calm down and he goes for rook takes e4. This just looks like how is Black getting away with this? The rook on e4, the knight on g4, pawn to f3 is coming. But it all kind of hinges on the fact that White's bishop on h4 is loose. What a fascinating position.
It's loose, and the knight on g4 is better than it looks. If you play f3, you walk into knight e3, hitting the queen and exposing a discovered attack on the bishop. So what are Wesley's options here? Well, he can play bishop f3, which leads to a wild tactical skirmish after knight e3. He could also sidestep with a move like queen c2. Ultimately, Danny, I think the key is to get this rook off of e4 at all costs.
Get the rook off of e4. you can always win back your d4 pawn. And we should also highlight that that e6 square at the end, Danya, is calling white's name, right? And if you get a knight on e6, you're either letting the pony dominate, or you're parting ways with the light square bishop, which can make things worse. And suddenly Ben Feingold is right that pushing f6 was bad. We hate when Ben Feingold's right on these shows. Everyone knows that. So we've got, yeah. So if you're Wesley So, you got to just deal with this moment and try to win back the d4 pawn and head to e6.
Yeah, but Wesley, look at his time expenditure. He's down to 2 minutes. This is a very complex position. I think he is deciding between, essentially 3 candidate moves. Knight takes d4, bishop g3. Okay, so he wants to eliminate all of the problems connected with knight e3, but he's given Levon a tempo that he can use to play.
Yeah, f5 can be played to overprotect the knight on g4, unleash the bishop on g7 to guard the d4 pawn. Still an absolute crazy mess, and even though the computer says black is better, I feel like this is a position that only a computer could play well, though. I just have this practical sense of danger, right? My spidey senses are tingling that this feels really scary for black to hold everything.
Totally. And bishop f3, rook e8, knight takes d4, the knight drops back to e5, and black is positionally better because e6, oh my gosh, what a move, Levon sacking the exchange.
That stuff. This is exciting chess for black.
Yeah, queen d2, and Wesley trying to hold everything together in the center, these pawns in particular, and then maybe get the rook from a1 to e1 and start surrounding the e4 pawn. But first he's got to defend the c4 pawn, so he has to throw in the move b3.
And I know that white is objectively better here. If you guard c4, you put the rook on e1. But did you see Levon just like sit up there and borderline just like brush his shoulder off? And did you see that, Danya? He's like, all right, this is my kind of chess. Crazy exchange sacrifice. Here we come.
but I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical because the rook's coming to e1 and the pawn on e4. If it falls, everything falls, right? That's kind of what we were talking about in their previous kid game, where there was a pawn not on e4 but on g4. That pawn fell, and we know how that game ended.
Yeah. I like this move, bishop g4, to go to e2, although we should probably point out that maybe the simplest thing to do is white just to go there and sacrifice the exchange back. He plays it before I can say it, and then white is going to gobble up everything, and Levon does not want his opponent to sacrifice the exchange back. So that's a frustrating move to face.
I think Levon forgot about that. I'm going to put this on the board really quickly. Bishop e2, very tempting, yeah. But you trade on e2. Well, trade. You sack the exchange back, and you're going to lose e4. And once you lose e4, you're just a pawn down for no compensation. To make matters worse, the knight can also circle around to e6. So kind of a disaster here for Levon if he plays bishop e2. But how else are you going to defend this pawn? Bishop f3? Is that even a move?
I mean,
no, then bishop e5.
First of all, I just love the idea that bishop f3 could even be suggested. Of course, it doesn't work, but bishop f3, if only you could play something with queen to g5 or something, but it just doesn't work. This is a position where I'm clearly rooting for the underdog who has probably just played a dubious exchange sack and is on his way to a 6-game deficit. That's probably the truth, but I'm going to pretend like it's not happening until it happens.
I mean, as commentators, I think we always want a close match, so it's not that we're rooting, for one player in particular. We're rooting for the match to become interesting, and right now, I mean, it's getting so out of control that it's rarely this lopsided after the 5-minute portion. Levon going all in here, trying to get his queen, Danny, to h3, but is he fast enough? I don't think so. Rook e3 might come just in time, the countersack on f3.
Yep. No, as it's played, shaking my head, and of course, I mean, we said at the outset, we're not rooting for Levon now, and in theory, we're rooting for a close match, but we did say at the outset that we both saw Wesley So as a big favorite for a reason. This is a nice move. You're going to take f3, and then queen takes d3, and then the f3 pawn falls. So there is no checkmate on g2. And I don't know what Levon's going to do after this.
I don't either. I think he's going to lose. And if he plays bishop h6 to freeze the rook, then the knight drops back to d4. So it's a team effort. There are too many pieces that are attacking this bishop. And the problem is that the queen from d3, Danny, can drop back to f1 once the rook moves out of the way. And Wesley has just enough time to make all of these moves in time.
Yep, and so if black plays rook f8 here, rook to e1, and you're just down a piece for nothing, for free. And you see that game arc telling us exactly what happened. Black had his moment there before the exchange sack, where you saw black had a small edge, but now it is all white. It's all Wesley, and the dub is coming for doubly so. Doubly so.
Doubly so.
Desley? I'm trying to combine dub for W and Wesley. Doubly so. I mean, I don't know. It just happened. I think I'm going to stick with it. Doubly so.
That's just like me trying to cook a steak. I came to terms with the fact that it's not going to happen, and I'm back to DoorDash now. So, and Wesley's back to a3. Now this is knight c3.
Also works.
Rook f8. Oh, you can go king h1 and rook g1. That's an alternate way of guarding the g2 pawn. This is going to be the last game. More bad news for Levon. He's going to end, unless a miracle happens, on a loss. Wow.
Yeah. We've officially reached time for those following the countdown clock in the corner. The 5-1 portion is at its end, but remember, any game in progress counts toward the total score. And at this point, that's not even good news for Levon Aronian. Wishes he could take a break and just go back to the drawing board for 3-1.
And we need a complete sea change here in Levon's front. The problem is form generally isn't recovered in the span of a 5-minute break, Danny. I mean, that is a huge issue. It's not the fact that he's losing the games. I said this earlier. It's how he's losing them, and it's just the one-sided nature of a lot of these games. Levon just not able to react accurately in important moments, and Wesley will punish you every single time.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here in my head, like, what do you do if you're Levon? How do you turn things around? The good news is you still got a lot of chess left. You know, they're going to probably play at least another 20 games. But when you're not feeling it, as you said, Danya, a 5-minute break is usually not enough to turn around your fortunes. Mm-hmm. But as they say, class is permanent, form is temporary. We know Levon Aronian's class is top level. By the way, I almost hallucinated Queen E1 check there for a reason. I did a little shake and bake of my head and then remembered the knight was guarding.
Yep.
That was wild.
He can go f3, and that's it. Yeah. He's just going to resign.
Levon resigns. Wesley So has a 6-game lead. This is not what we thought would happen, right? You said we thought we'd have a closer match than what went down between Hikaru Nakamura and Yu Yangyi yesterday. Turns out Wesley So had other plans, and Levon Aronian is down and out right now, Danya.
Yes, I didn't agree with the Smarter Chess prediction. I thought that Wesley was likely to win the 5+1 portion, but nobody thought that it would end like this. 6 victories out of 7 games. Levon eking out 1 draw in there, but this has been a completely one-sided match thus far, and Wesley is just doing Wesley things.
Yeah, I'm blown away right now, blown away by it, but we still have a lot of chess ahead, so even though Levon Aronian is not enjoying today's match, we hope that you are enjoying the Speed Chess Championship, which once again is brought to you by our presenting partner in Coinbase. Coinbase is a crypto platform revolutionizing financial systems for the modern world. It's time to update your financial system to one that is accessible, decentralized, and transparent. Let's go, Coinbase. Go to coinbase.com/update the system today. It's time to update the system. Danya, it's time for Levon Aronian to update his systems, maybe do a restart of the computer, maybe a restart of his energy levels, shove enough caffeine in him. You know, I don't know what he's got to do to update his system. You have any thoughts before we head to the break on that?
Well, he needs to forget this ever happened. I mean, these 90 minutes, he needs to forget that they ever occurred, erase them from his life, maybe change some openings, maybe go through whatever routine he goes through. But Levon's an experienced guy. He's been through everything, and maybe that is ultimately what's going to help him.
All right. Will experience pay off? Will Levon find a way to turn it around? Will he update his system as we called out? But either way, we have a lot more chess in store, so don't go anywhere. It's the 3-1 portion and the 1-1 portion still ahead today in this Speed Chess Championship match, brought to you by Coinbase.
What's the best way to follow any chess event from the Champions Chess Tour to the Candidates, Speed Chess Championship, Title Tuesday, FIDE World Championship, and so much more? Chess.com/events has all of the top chess tournaments played both over the board and online. Analyze and review games from the world's greatest players with live commentary, cloud analysis, opening explorer, and table bases. Find all the key event information, including schedules, prizes, results, news reports, player bios, tie breaks, and more. Even compete by voting for your predicted results. Explore chess.com/events today on web or with our iOS and Android apps and experience chess like never before.
September bots are here, and it's time for a monumental clash. This barbarian might not crush you on the board, but he certainly can crush you with the board. Speaking of crushing, this giant is a living siege tower. Usually found in groups, goblins are fond of sharp, pointy objects and other people's pieces. The battle-hardened Valkyrie might give you a game once she's done arm wrestling a golem. This hog rider and his noble steed might give you a headache or two. Skeletons adore her, foes fear her. You'll need to bring your A game if you want to beat this witch. Yes, that probably is a rabbit up his sleeve, or a huge fireball with your name on it. We hear wizards are pretty good at chess. Not just a killing machine, Pekka loves tiny butterflies. But you're probably not a butterfly, so watch out. The Archer Queen thinks highly of herself, and for good reason. She's a skilled tactician, deadly opponent, and your worst nightmare. Play them all on chess.com.
are back. Speed Chess Championship rolls on here, presented by Coinbase. We are in our second matchup of the 2023 campaign. There's Wesley So getting ready to continue, he hopes, the momentum into the 3-1 portion. And speaking of campaigns, Wesley So has not really had a bad first-round campaign in the SCC. We showed you earlier that Levon Aronian has also never lost a first-round matchup. So heading into today, I guess we were bound to see some history change for one of these two gentlemen. We've already talked about the fact that Wesley So, not only undefeated in the first round, has only lost to two people, and they are known as Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen. So it's a pretty good record, if you ask me, right? Wesley So is so good at Blitz, and online Blitz chess especially. I would argue he's probably the third best human on the planet, maybe after Nakamura and Carlsen. And that's unfortunately bad news for Levon Aronian, given that he's already down by 6 games as we head into the 3+1 portion. International Master Danny Wrench here. We're hoping to get my partner, Grandmaster Danya Naroditsky, back, but for now, we're going to be flying solo and doing it in faster time control fashion here with another Sicilian and with 3 minutes plus 1 second now on the clock. So, both players, I think they got the memo. Look how much faster they're playing. We have the same structure that Danya and I have now talked about a few times on the board with this very flexible, not quite Udawson Sicilian, as Danya pointed out. That's where the bishop kind of does this reroute back here and gets on this diagonal. So this is even a little more passive for white. If you could argue that the whole point of this structure is to be flexible, to get d4 and these things, this is passively flexible because the bishop is also not on an aggressive diagonal. Again, we've seen Levon do this a couple times now, but we've also seen in all of those games, the computer just suggests that Wesley So is going to be in a great spot here as black. So nothing much has changed from that point of view here. Although I will again point out, Levon Aronian had a time advantage in just about every one of our 5+1 battles, at least as far as the opening and early middle games went. And this is no exception. He continues to be up on the clock right now. And he had more time than he started with just a second ago. So we'll see. We'll see if Levon can shock the world, right? If you missed what we talked about to preview this match, we said that Levon really needed to start well in 5 minutes. Well, look at the scoreboard. Then we said that Wesley So is the most accurate player Chess.com has ever measured with their anti-cheating and all kinds of algorithms we're not going to talk about ever. And now we're in 3-1, right? So every one of these storylines is building up toward what could be a Wesley So route. But I don't think any of us want that. I don't even think Wesley wants that. I'm going to be honest. Wesley is such a nice guy. Wesley doesn't want to just absolutely destroy Levon off the board. But that doesn't mean he's gonna let up. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Shout out chat. We're hoping to get Danya back. Don't RIP Danya me. T-Street703. I see you in Twitch chat. Just kidding. Love you. But no matter what, we're going to have the show go on, and this match will continue. We see Levon give a... I've done one of those before too. You got to shake it off. All right, so what's going on here that we can learn from? The knight to d2 move from Levon does kind of prepare f4, but I don't think so. Opening up the structure probably actually favors black at this point. In fact, I'm predicting instead you're going to see more positional chess. Okay, he goes knight b3, but similar to my point, which was that he needs to try to undermine on the queen side. Yeah, he's trying to pry open some squares, even if he just backs up the knight. Either way, he was trying to get these pawns to push forward, to give himself some sort of target, which is something you can do. Even in a position that's equal, you can maybe try to bait your opponent into advancing their pawns, because pawns are the only pieces that can't go back, right? And therefore, if they put themselves on a bad square, maybe bad things happen. Unfortunately for Levon, though, he looks like he's headed for some weird tactics. The knight goes to c5. It feels vulnerable to me. Wesley takes on d3, but is there something to do against the knight? Is it like moving the knight? a6 is falling, though, and in fact, Wesley says, yeah, I'm just going to defend that pawn. So Levon has kind of gotten away with it, right? He managed to kind of pry open some squares. The knight is objectively just on a much better square than it was a few moves ago. And here comes a4. So despite whether the computer says there was more accurate chess here, from a human perspective, this has been a good game for Levon, and a good lesson for all of us at home in terms of how to play against the queenside expanded pawns in the Sicilian. Let's go Levon. Chat wants a closer matchup. We know you do. Takes and knight to b4. Wesley has to deal with that. He reinforces the protection of the pony. And we're back to a roughly equal position. It's interesting. I have a hard time deciding who I would prefer here. I think I would prefer Levon slightly, not just because he's up 40 seconds on the clock. But I think the bishop pair has to be some type of advantage, even though I lack the future for this bishop, because I don't see it getting to the d5 square currently. b5 doesn't do much. So it's a really interesting position. Totally symmetrical structure. We see our smarter chess predictions there. Below, you've got the pre-game prediction was 47%. The current prediction is 5% for Aronian. Not a good day at the office, right? That's what he's saying. And here we go. Knight to d4 played. What are the tactics here? If white takes everything on d4, what happens at the end? Can we analyze that real quick? Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. I assume we have rook takes c1 and probably e4 just hangs. So actually it's just that simple. So if everything trades on d4, in the end it's nothing but a trade thing, baby, because e4 falls. So Levon not sure how to handle it. Will he just save the bishop? If I had to guess, he will. Whether he gains a tempo or even puts it on d1 or d3. He puts the bishop on a safe square from the knight's gaze, and the position remains deadlocked. But once again, you're liking how Wesley So has played the position. I mean, here comes rook to b1. The knight is pinned. You have to part ways with the bishop pair. Now we're in an opposite code bishop position, where certainly black is going to be just fine. I'm not calling the draw yet, but the point is this is a very hard position for white to win. And Wesley So takes e4. Does he have d3 next? A little discovered attack, right? A little shake and bake. It's actually interesting because if bishop takes e4, he could also take b3 and sacrifice the exchange. He has a very, very strong pawn for it. I don't think that's what he had planned. But did he see rook e1? He did indeed. What a move. Queen to b4. Hits the rook on e1 and the knight on b3. Wesley So goes for the opposite code bishop position. And with it, he's also up now 14 seconds on the clock. He's doubling Levon's time. He's doing good. Puts the king on h7. It's just a big old trade. But it's funny. The computer says this is equal, and surely it is by computer standards. But tell me you don't think Wesley is going to win this game. Look at the clock. He's the one up a pawn in an opposite code bishop ending. Here comes queen check. Maybe he has nothing but a draw, and perhaps Wesley says, I'm in a great match situation. I'll just take the draw. But no, Levon wants more. And it's a game that you feel like Levon could easily lose. Those dark squares are such a problem. No time on the clock. Where is my partner? I'm all alone, having a great time. Hope you are too. Bishop takes e5. And now Wesley's going to be like, are you kidding me? I'm not trading queens. Yeah. Check. Here comes bishop f4. Head into e3. Okay, h4's hanging. I see that. So I guard it first with my king. But here comes stuff. Maybe now he does have to play queen f4. Oh, he allows it. He's giving up the pawn with check, going for the win. And this is Wesley So, I think, at his best. We saw him do this in one game in the CCT that kind of blew my mind, where he kept pushing for a win where he shouldn't have, and I loved it. All right, looks like Levon did find the symmetry. Shout out to geometry, kids. Learn your shapes and patterns, because there you go in chess. It might save a perpetual draw, perpetual check draw. But if you look at the overall match situation, the problem is that 10 more minutes just went by. I guess 8 minutes. I won't exaggerate. And Wesley So maintains a 6-game lead. So that's what a dominant 5-1 portion will do for you. This is an opening right up my alley. Just making sure I'm not missing anything here from chat. Seeing all of you on YouTube and Twitch. If you're chatting on another platform than YouTube and Twitch and hearing my voice, maybe head over there and get involved. All right, this is a Taimanov English attack. I play these positions as white often. Knight a5 and knight e5 are both the mainline moves here. White can play knight to b3. That's the theory anyway. I think g4 objectively is also fine according to the computer, but knight to b3 is the main point. And the idea is that you're not really afraid of the dark square bishop trading on c3, because in the end, these types of problems become way more serious. So we see indeed Wesley So plays knight b3. I'm pointing out that a lot of people might look at this and say, oh, bishop takes and we get a big trade and double pawns, but the dark squares are way more problematic for black here. And now the move is often bishop d4. We'll see if Wesley remembers his theory. Bishop d4 has two ideas. One, it guards c3. Two, it opens up the queen coming to g5. And in fact, he plays it, which hits g7. And in that spot, black gets under a lot of fire. I'm not going to lie. This is the kind of position I fantasize about at night, alone. Maybe I'm lonely. Maybe there's a bottle of wine. That's none of your business. But I do fantasize about these types of positions. And when you get them, you tend to get very good English attacks. This is my repertoire gone wild. I love this position for white. I mean, seriously, it's unfortunate that I'm predicting yet another opening victory, or I say D-victory, anti-victory for Levon. But here white can play knight takes d5, and it's simple. You're just up development, and you just start pawn storming. In fact, he does it. You also probably could have got away with knight e4, but this is such a good position for white. Oh, it's painful for Levon. I love this opening, but it's painful. Look at that move, queen e3. Threatens bishop c5 in a lot of positions because of the discovery on the queen. The structure is dominant for white. The bishop hasn't even partied yet. He's that meme. What's the meme with the guy? They don't even know him at the party. Like, no one even knows the bishop was invited to the party. You can play g4, h4, h5. This is what happens. This is what happens when an equal position is dominant, right? The eval says white is almost +2, and there's not even a material advantage. That's how bad this position is. I'm out of liquid, and I lack a partner. Could be a long night, kids. Okay. If you don't win at anti-victory, that's touche. That's touche. I guess I misspoke. Thank you for that, Dark Tiger. All right, b5 is played. Okay, there's no bishop c5 now, or at least it's nothing but a big trade. But you can play a number of moves here. The problem for black is that even if you develop this bishop, okay, that's a nice move that proves the point I was going to make. Even if you develop the bishop, you haven't solved any discovery problems, because that just means d7 is weak. And how are you going to deal with that backward weakness? You can't ever push it. I take it, and the world falls apart. This e5 pawn is crippling to black structure. And even if the dark square bishops were just traded on c5, like let's say I'm not even winning anything, even that position is probably pretty dominant for white, because that pony is going to dominate the light square bishop, hit d7, maybe head for some dark squares if he's feeling lucky that night. And it's just a very tough position. Also, time is revealing, as they say. Time gets us all, right? Levon Aronian has been up on the clock in a lot of these middle games. Not so much here. Not so much here. Yeah. Queen to b7. Bishop to c5 is fun. Just take... he goes knight to c5. That's an opposite of bishop funness. Let's analyze, though. I think my move bishop c5 is better. I'm just going to back up. Yeah, computer likes it even more. I mean, what are you going to do? Can you even get away with this? Right? Queen takes it. You're bringing the knight into squares. You can even just play moves like f4, and you're just literally dominating the entire position here. So, yeah, this is a problem. Wesley played knight to c5. He's inviting the obstacle bishops that Levon doesn't go for. What a move. Knight d6 check. If takes, the g7 pawn hangs in the end. The black king will never get safe. Opposite... He goes for mate. He doesn't even want the pawn. Oh my gosh, it hurts. This game will be over in 3 moves. Count it. I called it. This game will be over in 3 moves. That's 1. And it's brilliant. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. The game's over in 1 move. Bishop takes f6. Black resigns. I called 3 moves because I was looking at g takes f6, queen takes f6, and then I thought he resigned, which was 3 moves from when I called queen g5. So I guess, in theory, I was close. That was brutal. And Levon continues the search. He has a spotlight out. He's called on the dogs. Right? Insert any other reference to how you would conduct a successful search for someone or something that is missing. Levon continues the search, and he is unable to find an opening to go after Wesley So. He's unable to find an answer against the American Grandmaster, who, as we've said, has only been eliminated in the SCC format by the only 2 guys who've ever won the event. So this is a tough matchup, especially if you're not on form. Although Wesley did just give him a favor. Is this the French opening sucks reference of the day? Wow. We're almost 2 hours into the show, and it's the first time we've had a chance to insult the French defense. That's a first time. Wesley So plays a French, which is not an opening you choose if you want to have an enjoyable game. And so anyway, that's fun. And he feels bad for Levon, which is why he played the French. maybe Levon is going to get a victory here. He's got the bishop on a3. He's got the rook on f8 here. The knight on e7. Yeah, this is actually a great position for white. Just like everyone gets a great position as white against the French if they know their openings. So, anyway, Wesley So is showing a little mercy. Wesley show mercy. Doubly so. It's too late, Puddin' Snack. Too late. I already hated on the French defense. And I'm not taking it back. It's on camera. It's online. All right. It goes on the internet. You can't take it down from there. All right. Okay. Rook to c8 is played. Let's talk about the instructive chess here, because the one good thing Wesley has going for him is that when this pawn chain breaks, e5 becomes weak. This is the positional idea in the French. The problem is that the dark square bishop, or let's say the lack thereof dark square bishop for black, is what often tells the tale here. Black, look at that. White opens up. The bishop is going to come to d6. You can take on g6 if you want. The winnower problems for white include the c file, the doubled c pawns, and if the chain breaks, as we see, the e5 pawn. But the problem here is that white is up a pawn, and I don't think e5 is going to become weak, and you could argue that b6 is probably just as weak as the c3 pawns. Although maybe I'm getting a little bit too biased against the French. Black does have the move knight a5 coming. In fact, right as I highlight it, he plays it, and so the arrow didn't show up. That's a good move. Knight a5 is going to come into c4, and the c3 and c2 pawns remain long-term weaknesses. So, as much as I love these positions for white, I will admit that black has worked his way into a positional game that he likes. a4 is weak, c3 is weak. The more I look at it, the more I'm not thrilled with Levon's position as much as I would like to be on the white side of a French. Oh, don't get me wrong, I still favor white in the game. Don't get too excited. But knight h4, what a move. He's preventing f5 the old-fashioned way. He just says, I'm just guarding f5, and what are you going to do? By the way, you see what happens if you play g3? Should we show it? If g3 was played, wait for it, rook takes d4, boom. You eliminate the knight from guarding the f3 fork, and no matter how white recaptures, the game is over after knight f3 check, winning the queen. So, knight h4 was a very nice move from Wesley. G3 was not a move because of rook takes d4. Levon does not fall for it. He plays rook e3, and after rook takes a4, we've seen a trade that objectively probably does favor black, because the opening of the position means this bishop has a future, and that future probably involves g2. At some point, this position is going to get scary for the white king. You heard it here first. Mark it down. Because look at this. This diagonal is not open, which means the most dangerous square for the white dark squared bishop, the white dark squared bishop, is g7. That bishop will never party on that square. The most dangerous square for the black light squared bishop is g2. And the black bishop will party on that square. I'm predicting that. So this is actually, even though it's equal, this is dangerous. Even playing the French was not enough for Levon today. Right now, Wesley So is on another level. I think this is a very dangerous position for white. I mean, objectively, it's equal. But I'm worried about this g2 pawn. I'm worried about these ideas. The rook coming in. I'm worried about light squares. Levon has to be very careful. Maybe he wants to get the rooks off the board. IDK. In fact, he does, okay? IDK is what the cool kids say. It's French for not a good thing to do. That's what IDK is. B5. Nice move. After B5, if you take, the black passer is crushing. Bishop B4. Keeps the piece on the board, but here comes the move I was worried about. Now watch. Here comes the diagonal. You're on the defense. You're on the retreat. Although, fun fact, you have to watch out for queen c6 because of bishop f8. Remember how I said the white bishop will never hit the party square g7? Apparently I was wrong. Wesley was very aware of that. What a high-level idea. He didn't want to play queen c6. He was worried about bishop f8 hitting g7. In fact, here it comes, because if the g-pawn moved, h6 was a problem. This is interesting stuff. It still doesn't amount to anything, because Wesley did find a way to get that diagonal without letting g7 become a problem. And now he plays queen e4, puts the queen in front of the battery. But we have a battle, ladies and gentlemen. It's over the g-pawns. The battle is over the g-pawns. Who is going to target their light or dark squares more effectively? And right now, it looks like Wesley So is on track. But this is not outside the realm of a crazy mating net. Everybody, get excited. You see how I'm leaning up here? You know this doesn't happen unless I'm feeling good. Okay, g6 is played by force because if takes, pawn takes, and the mate net was on, g6 is played. What happens next? This bishop would love to work itself around to f8 and h6. But Levon only has 20 seconds to figure it out. I actually think this is probably the best move. He does it. He plays bishop e7. Black takes the pawn, but bishop f8. What is he doing? What is he doing? Queen g5. Wesley So just mated himself. And Levon Aronian gets his first win of the entire match. I called it just like that. OMGs or snaps. Wesley So falls apart in the final moments. And I was both proven right and wrong. I was proven right that the French always loses. I was proven wrong when I said that it would be black who got the better attack in the opposite code bishop dynamic. It turns out Levon found a way to work his magic. And this idea of bishop e7 that I was saying and bishop f8, the fact that he found that move under time pressure, five-head play, or what is the things you guys say on Twitch to make yourself sound cool? Like, oh, that was the dub. I don't know. You know, we get it. You get it. Yeah. Well, Wesley So loses for the first time today. Unfortunately for Levon, he's still facing a 6-game deficit. And if you're wondering what the SCC record books say, we have never seen more than a 4-game deficit comeback. We've seen someone come back and tie it, I believe, trailing 5 games. And again, I don't have a partner here to keep my stats in check, and I'll try to keep track. But I've commentated more of these SCC shows than anybody on the planet still to this day, even with me getting old and retiring, and Danya and Hess doing most of the work. So I'm pretty sure that I'm right about that. We've only seen a 4-game deficit overcome as far as someone who came back to win. And that means Levon is facing an uphill historic battle. That said, a win's a win. A dub's a dub, right? And Levon Aronian strikes. He is now back in the match. And here we have a crazy game. We had this sort of weird Benoni-Blumenfeld crazy gambit, partly because of a London move order from White. I actually think that this is an opening that is right up Levon's alley. This is tricky stuff. I personally like a lot of these positions for black. This isn't the most common move order, but we'll back up real quick to the analysis board and just show what this is. It's called, according to our opening repertoire, we're calling this the Indian game on the chess.com opening explorer. But this type of position is often reached in a more Queen's Indian special with c4, and then if black plays c5 and d5, you get b5. So this is sort of the traditional Blumenfeld gambit where you give up the queen side. Unlike a Benko where you sacrifice the queen side to get opening lines, here you sacrifice the queen side to get the center. Ultimately, that's your goal. And so this was a London move order, but Levon takes advantage of the idea of getting b5 and then doesn't apologize for just getting super, super aggressive on the queen side. And we get, as I said, kind of a Blumenfeld-esque style position, except one big point in terms of why I like black. Black isn't even down a pawn here. So this is a fun, dynamic game, especially in blitz. I like the move order. I like the practical choice from Levon. Black has the 2 center pawns and the bishop, and he's not even down a pawn, as you would normally be in a Blumenfeld gambit. So Bob's your uncle. I'm happy with LeBlan's position. Is it going to be 2 in a row after that move 95? Doesn't look like the best move. Maybe Black can just take the pawn. Okay, he takes A1 first, but his... Oh, okay. LeBlanc didn't do it. I wonder if he could have just taken the pawn. In fact, if I had to guess, that was the move. That was the reason 95 was a mistake. Now he's going out of his way to gang up on the pawn. I guess pointing out that grab a Snickers. Isolated pawns aren't going anywhere for a while. So, not a bad point, I guess, from Levon, but maybe not the most forcing way he could have taken the b4 pawn. Yeah, best defense in chess is attacking. Agreed, Tim. And queen d3, speaking of good defense, is a good offense. Threatens d7. That's the idea. You're hitting the pawn. And I think if knight takes b4, I think you could legit just take the pawn on d7. So instead, Levon trades on e5, gathers b4, but white can take d7. That's what we were sort of calling for. And indeed, that's what happens. We're in an endgame. I'm predicting... Ooh, this is kind of crazy. I don't know what... I was about to say I'm predicting bishop f3, but if you traded off those bishops, I actually think that was really good for black, because this bishop dominates the knight with a passed b-pawn. So instead, Wesley gets the rooks off the board, though he still has an uphill battle, especially given that Levon is up on the clock. The momentum, can you feel it? Coming in the air tonight. Hold on. Right? I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Let's go Levon, right? Levon Aronian is trying to get a comeback started. And as they say, a comeback starts with one game. And he already did that last game. If he pulls off the miracle here and converts this b-pawn, despite the computer saying that it's objectively holdable for white, I don't know. I'm just saying, Phil Collins wrote that song for a reason. I'm pretty sure that entire song was about Levon Aronian completing an SCC comeback, right? I can feel the comeback in the air tonight. Levon. Okay. Levon is pushing. He's got the b-pawn. Bishop d5 is the way to do it, but then bishop to c4. Yeah, you can take d2, because if take d5, I think you take e3. Okay, yeah, and that means he's going to probably keep the bishop. Wait, if bishop d2, bishop d5, bishop e3, bishop e6, king e6, king takes, there was a b-pawn. Okay, hold on. All right, black is pushing this. I wonder if there was something better. In fact, now black is on it, so I'm not even going to back up. I wonder what I was obviously missing something for white there. Otherwise, Levon missed a chance to simplify into a winning king and pawn ending. Either way, this is a bishop dominating a knight. And did I not tell you that Phil Collins wrote the song, Levon Aronian has a comeback in the air tonight? That's what we're talking about here. B3. Take my bishop and welcome the lady. Baby girl Brittany joins the party on B1, and Levon Aronian is winning 2 games in a row here in the SCC. Okay? This game is not over. It's not a tumor. It's not over. Okay? You have to get the pump. It's the greatest feeling in the world. Okay, this is what we have. Levon Aronian is feeling the pump right now. He's won 2 games in a row. He's back to his Udawson Sicilian. Shout out to Danya, wherever you are. We love you. We miss you. Call me later, sweetie. Talk to you later. Levon Aronian has brought this to within, I guess you could argue, striking distance. The problem with how bad he fell apart is, like, he could literally win the next, 3 games in a row. He's still the underdog in the match, because I believe Wesley So's the better bullet player. But okay, you know what? The chances of a comeback only get better with every game Levon wins. And I love how chat's saying I'm desperately trying to keep it exciting. I'm excited. If you're not enjoying this, that's a you problem. You're the one watching chess on a Tuesday morning, right? Who needs to judge themselves? If you're watching chess on a Tuesday morning when you should be working, that means you're happy to be here because you're a fan. So let's just cut the negativity and enjoy the show, shall we? Bishop to d3 is played because there's a threat on c2. And now we really do have a Ruy Lopez Spanish type of structure, or an Italian, depending on what you want to call it. The point is there's flexibility, right? E5, D5, E5, D5. For both colors, somebody's going to push a pawn at some point. And that's true. If it's 2 a.m. for you, then welcome, and I hope you had a productive workday. A5 played from Wesley. I actually really like that move. You're threatening to play A4, and you're pointing out that D4 is a weakness you have not sufficiently protected yet. So one of the instructive things about this structure is you have to make sure your pieces are primed for success, not just now, but when the inevitable happens. And the players are constantly calculating that, because you want to make sure that should you choose to lock it up, which, by the way, is an interesting move for black here because F2 is hanging. By the way, is A4 possible here for Wesley? Because D4 and F2 are real problems. And what I was saying is you have to make sure your pieces are primed for success, not just in the current structure, but in the coming structure. And that means Bishop E3 may not have been a great move for Levon, because I think we're about to see a blow open. Whether that's E5 or, bleep it all to hell, even F5. I've been told when I'm recording I can actually curse because they bleep it out. But on live shows, I have to bleep out myself. So what the bleep is going on here if black plays F5 or E5? This is an example of the structure opening up and whose pieces are more primed. I would say black's were. Let's go to the Batcave. I literally think that black had E5 or F5 here. I think both those moves were maybe better. E5 was a pin, and even this crazy move F5. And the reason is that if you take it, now when I take D4, everything opens up for this rook to be just dominating on the... Everybody is partying over here at the end. This is a crazy move. The queen guards the knight, so you can't take it. Okay. Knight A5 was played, and Levon is coming back at you. He's relocated his pieces to better squares. The bishops are actually... Okay, the bishops are actually doing well there. Bishop to B4 is played. Maybe E5 is coming. I think Wesley So missed his chance there. Yeah. Bishop A6 is played. Now Levon Aronian in a much better spot than he was. Can he just take C4? Get rid of the... He does it. You can't take with the pawn, by the way, because A4 hangs. So you have to take with the rook. And these pieces are actually really well placed here. I mean, bad bishop. E5 is played to take advantage of the pin on the D6 pawn. Look, stay with me here, okay? Chess is a game of momentum. Obviously, Wesley So had the momentum in the 5-1 portion. And did any of us predict that at some point he would have a 7-game lead? Of course not, right? We thought this match would be much closer. But would anybody have predicted that because of how good Levon Aronian is? That's the reason Aronian is. We wouldn't have, right? And so my point is, like, there's no reason the momentum can't swing the other way for a little bit, right? These two guys, if they play 100 games, are probably very close to what the Smarter Chess prediction said. 53% to 47%. And so if Levon wins a third game in a row, you might want to call in sick if you are currently skipping school or work because you work in the United States. If you are enjoying an afternoon or evening in Europe, then great. If you're up way past your bedtime as we move further east in the globe, then thanks for being with us, right? I'm just saying it's not over. It's not over. I love Levon's position here. Maybe E6. Queen F8 is played. Wow, I thought E6 was the... Okay, I thought E6 was better when the queen was still on F5. But what do I know? He plays E6 now. He'll take with the rook. Note that D5 is hanging, but that's one of those weird pawns. Do you even want to take D5 and let this bishop back in the game? He just opened his queen! What in the world? What in the world? Oh my gosh. Oh, bro. Bro. Oh, man. That defines the day. You saw Wesley shake his head. He wasn't even that thrilled the moment the blunder happened. Obviously, we just saw Levon a few moments ago. Certainly, he had one of those days where he's like, okay, it's like, can I pack it up and go home now? Obviously, he's not going to. He's a professional. And the good thing about the Speed Chess Championship format is every win counts for some amount of money. So there's always something on the line. I still don't know why more tournaments don't do that. But the point is, when you're mounting a comeback, you've won 2 games in a row. You're mounting a comeback, you've won 2 games in a row, and you hang your queen in 1 move. Right? Seriously, Levon Aronian just played fantastic chess. Everything about this game was heading White's direction, and he blunders his queen in 1 move. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're not in your best shape. But you know what keeps you in your best shape? AG1, Athletic Greens. Did you know that they are also a sponsor of our shows? There's an ugly looking mug right there and a beautiful face in the background looking over his shoulder. Shout out to Beth Harmon. We miss you, the Queen's Gambit. But there you go. AG1 is your next smart move. They are one of our official presenting partners. I do actually take AG1 on a regular basis. That's not just false advertising there. It's the one product that does the work of many. To find out more, go to drinkag1.com/chess or use the command AG1 for a direct link. If you do type it directly, make sure to include the chess to get your chess loving effort and support our partnership. So, if you're looking for something to supplement your health, I do take AG1. It's awesome, and you should consider it too. Levon Aronian should consider anything he can at this break to right this ship. Literally, that broke my heart. I'm not going to lie. I was shouting comeback. I was doing everything I could to tell you guys that this could be the most epic comeback of all time. He hangs his queen. What will he do? We're going to find out when we return.
Chess.com's game review recently got a major update. Here are 4 key notes. At the end of each game review, you will now see a summary of the game from your coach, your performance rating for that game, and a quick grade for you and your opponent in the opening, middle game, and end game. We've added a new classification called Miss for when a move fails to take advantage of an opportunity, but it is otherwise a sound move. We've also changed the definition of blunder. Now a move will only be considered a blunder if it loses material or allows a checkmate. Coach will now draw arrows and highlight squares when you hover over or click on the highlighted words in the move explanations. This should make move explanations easier to follow. Finally, Coach's explanations will now reference specific pieces and threats in the explanations, making move explanations much more intuitive. The new game review experience is available on chess.com right now.
What's the best way to follow any chess event from the Champions Chess Tour to the Candidates, Speed Chess Championship, Title Tuesday, FIDE World Championship, and so much more? Chess.com/events has all of the top chess tournaments played both over the board and online. Analyze and review games from the world's greatest players with live commentary, cloud analysis, opening explorer, and table bases. Find all the key event information, including schedules, prizes, results, news reports, player bios, tiebreaks, and more. Even compete by voting for your predicted results. Explore chess.com/events today on web or with our iOS and Android apps and experience chess like never before.
2023 Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase continues on. We know that man is going to continue to fight on. Levon Aronian is a star, make no mistake. Regardless of what the final score is today, we all know what he's capable of. And there's no denying that this is not where he wants to be. It's not how he drew it up at home, but there's also no denying his career. One of very, very few human beings winning the World Cup twice. That is a sight to behold. Magnus Carlsen just got his first World Cup victory because that is a gauntlet of an event. He's a world rapid champion in 2009, as you saw. His list of accomplishments is long, but he doesn't want to add losing in the first round of the Speed Chess Championship to his career. So let's see if he can completely forget what just happened, where he blundered his queen on h5 after winning 2 games in a row, and just get himself in the mindset that he's the one back in control. That's all you can do, because without any avoidance of it, the sports cliche, right? A comeback starts with 1 win, 1 game, and all you can do is focus on what you can control and in the moment. So we'll see if Levon Aronian can do it and keep this thing close for all of us, because you know that's what we want. And as I joked, I think even Wesley So would be happier with a final score that's closer. So anyway, here we are. We continue now in the back half of the 3+1 portion. Thanks for being with us. There is still bullet chess ahead. And because actually, if you just joined us in the preview show, we said that these two guys have never played each other in bullet. They have no record. They've also never played each other in the SCC until now. And so who knows, right? And because it's a game of momentum, you wonder what would happen if the wheels started coming off for Wesley, if he would find it to stay confident. So that's all you can hope for if you're Levon Aronian's fans. Obviously, many fans of Wesley So, myself included, along with many people, right? We're rooting for both these guys, and Wesley So has played some phenomenal chess today. We'll see if he can keep it up. Here we are. We just left opening theory. I hope you guys and gals appreciate the opening book eval bar. We try to bring some insights as we can. If the players are still in the openings, the eval bar changes to that segment where we list the percentages as far as what's most commonly played. And here we are in a traditional Queen's Gambit Rogozin kind of position with the knight on c6. It's actually more of like a Zucator kind of Chigorin. Actually, I don't know what the bleep this is. Honestly, the knight is not that useful on c6 when you are in Queen's pawn game structures, because the knight is sort of hitting a brick wall when it comes to a pawn on d4, which is why you often see the pawns on c6 or the pawns on c5 when the queen's pawns are leading the game. So this is one of those positions that favors white a little bit because of that. Black looks to change the structure in order to get the knight in a different spot. But objectively, this is a good position for white. You have 2 pawns. The one tactical shot you have to look out for is e5. Because if I'm explaining the drawbacks of the knight being on c6, as I did in a queen's pawn game, the pro of a knight being on c6 is that it supports this e5 break. And when you add the bishop on g4 to the pin, it makes you think that e5 might be possible, or even knight to g6 first and then e5. Yeah, in fact, here we go. Levon plays knight to g6. Will he go e5? He plays f5. Wow. That's a move right there. That's a move right there. He plays f5. He's just going to play f4. He's not kidding around. Yeah, he's not kidding around. He just plays f5. He's going to play f4. And I like Levon's position. Do it. Yeah, go for it. f4. The isolated pawn at the end of the line is sort of the key positional point, everybody. This structure was not just about opening up the f-file to attack the king. The d4 pawn is now weak with the e3 pawn gone. Okay. Queen f6. It does open the d8 square, which I like. It brings the rook into a position where it's going to hit the d4 pawn. And a slight inaccuracy, mainly because black probably could have just taken right away. Although I understand he was worried about the b7 pawn at the end of the line. So instead, he's trying to build up the momentum and keep the pressure. But it's hard to see what white can do to get out of this. Here comes rook to d8, and that d4 pawn is a problem. And again, if you're Levon Aronian, at the very least, you're like, well, knight e5. That's the move that the computer saw. That's why queen f6 wasn't good. These guys are so good. It's frustrating when you see the computer call a move a mistake that everybody in this planet would have played. Queen f6, right? Because you quickly did the math on taking f3 and you're like, oh, I don't want that. But now you see that queen f6 missed because of knight to e5. And in these tactics, if takes, and you take e5, you take with tempo on the queen, and the rook isn't winning anything on c4 because the queen guards it. And if you take e5 first after takes, queen takes, I think it's rook takes f4. Let's analyze this real quick. If knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes e5, what a crazy move. Rook to e1, according to the computer. And if takes, it's equal. If Wesley So calculated that to the end when he played 95, then I don't know. I'm saying, no, he didn't. You see my point? He didn't play rook e1, which was the best. He played this, which also still works, because now we can get the queens off the board and it's a big endgame. But I'm pointing out that rook e1 line, that was insane chess. Either way, Wesley does get himself in a very drawable spot. He's down a pawn, but because he's more active and his rook is headed into d7, white should be in pretty good shape here. In fact, don't be surprised if this game just... Oh, no, Levon wants more. But rook f8, rook d7, and then just a quick game of tickle was probably objectively the best thing for black to do. But, of course, Levon wants more because he's down 1.5 million games here, right? But now you could argue that white is actually for choice by the slightest of margins. Because this e6 pawn is a little weak. And we should be in equal territory. Of course, in time pressure, stranger things have happened. Still haven't seen the final or new season of Stranger Things. You know, things started getting weird, right? Stranger Things. It was already a hard show to get into as a dad. I can't take it when kids are getting, kidnapped by aliens. Not my thing. Oh, twist ending. Sorry, did I spoil it for you? I don't care, okay? It's a Netflix show. Check it out. It happens in the first episode. Not a big deal. But anyway, Stranger Things is a show that I'm now talking about because this match is not very close. Wesley is up 6 games. Anyway, here we go. Okay, we're back to a French at least. Wesley So's going to give it a second try. He lost to Levon Aronian, the first French he played a few moments ago. If you're just tuning in, where have you been? This is not your traditional French, though. We got a win-or structure last time, which is about as French as it gets. This is the classical French, where at some point d takes e4 is going to happen, more than likely. And then we get then we get a structure that is not the pawn chain you normally see that defines the French. So both sides are really staring down the tension here, right? Neither side wants to blink. I kind of like it. Levon is pushing Harry, and his point is he's not giving up on the idea that he might play e5. He castles long. This is how you go for the kill when you're down 6 games. You get the king out of the center, and you just want blood. You want to open things up, and I love it. Rook, come on. I mean, this is the chess we paid for. Right? Come on, rook h3. We love it. The rook is going to g3. g7's a target. Wesley wants none of it, right? The king is going to be running it to the queen side. He is not interested in walking into that attack. What's he going to do here, though? FYI, if you play rook g8, there's actually ideas where at some point this bishop comes to h7 and then you win g7. I don't know that it's likely, but something to be thinking about. I'm not sure how black should handle this. I guess you can get away with g6, but he does it. It feels scary, though. Now Levon takes. Is there tactics? Is there tactics here? Probably not. But there is a lot of action here, right? The knight can come to b5 and hit the queen. The knight can come to e5. e6 is weak if we do anything on g6. Wesley is sort of laughing in the face of danger, and Levon really wishes he has something here. But I don't see anything concrete. I don't see anything concrete for white. And in this case, my opinion matters the most because I have the microphone and you don't. And I don't see anything concrete. But then again, I'm not a doctor. Although I did play one on TV one time. So, bishop b5, that's a good move. It pins the knight, threatens knight e5. And if you play bishop to c6, that's... Wait, take it. Take it. Yeah, give it to me. Put the knight on e5. Let's go. Right? Maybe even h5 still comes. This is looking good for Levon. And again, the craziest thing about this current match setup is that Levon is down 6 games. That he had the worst 5+1 portion that he's ever had in his career. Everything about the 3-1 portion has been very, very close. Levon has played well. As you can see, it's deadlocked. And he really should have objectively won the last game before the break, right? He blundered his queen in one move. So, this is tough for Wesley. He does need to kind of find himself a little bit. Holding this game would go a long way to making him feel like he's not going to let the cart tip over here and all the apples spill everywhere, or the cabbages if you're an Avatar Last Airbender fan. Shout out to the best anime series of all time. I love you, Aang. Also love you, Sokka. Bishop takes h4 from Wesley. He grabs a pawn and threatens bishop to g5, which would pin the queen. Levon takes the pawn. Oh, wait. For a second, I thought there was tactics. Something along the lines of knight takes g6 and weirdness going on. Apparently, Levon missed some opportunity there. Wesley rights the ship with bishop f6. We got to back up a couple moves. I got to see. Because it wasn't knight takes g6 because there's still bishop takes g5. And for the record, queen takes f8 doesn't work because you're not going to take with the king and allow this. You're going to take with the queen and just be winning. So there was no tactic there, but apparently the move was queen to g7, which stops bishop to f6 and just keeps the pressure. What a crazy position this is. Levon plays king to b1 instead. He keeps the pressure up. He's still in a great spot. By the way, analyzing that line quickly with the engine, I'm gonna show this idea because I don't want to pretend it was mine, but I saw it at the end of the line. Normally, I'm not looking at the engine, but at the end of that line, because I wanted to see the answer, I did. And the move that the engine is pointing out is coming is knight a4. And I wanted to say it before the king went to d7, and look out for it now. Knight a4 is a move at the end of a lot of these lines, and it was the reason why that queen g7 move was better for Wesley than what he did. He didn't see it. Oh, sorry, for Levon. But knight a4 is a move that really highlights all of black's pieces are busy and b6 is weak, but he didn't go for it, and now he's kind of missed his chance. It was actually better before the king went on the run. Anyway, so still a great position for Levon. If he gets this game, we're still on the momentum train of maybe an epic comeback, as improbable as that even sounds. But I want to point out that knight a4 was one of those computer moves that humans tend to miss because it's on the other side of the board, and it was really funny. Knight takes d5 is a threat. Don't miss it. Knight takes d5 is a threat. Don't miss it. He missed it. Knight takes d5 was a threat, and he missed it. That does not compute. Broken. Okay. Well, every once in a while, your commentator predicts a bad thing. Actually, maybe more often than I'd like to admit. Either way, knight f takes d5 was a threat, and Wesley missed it. And we have another victory for Levon Aronian. Again, if you're just tuning in, you're looking at the scoreboard, and I get it, but Levon has won 3 of the last 4 games and could have won another game before blundering his queen in one move. I'm not changing my prediction at this point. It feels just impossible. Yeah, but yeah, at this point, you got to give Levon some credit. We got to give Fabi a shout out, who's hanging out in chat. What's up, Fabi? Love you. I saw you got back to me on WhatsApp. Should we just talk about what we're talking about live? That's totally fine. Just email me. We'll work out the logistics. And I don't even think it's an inappropriate thing to talk about. We're working out Fabi recording his final videos for his Chessable course. Tell me you're excited about Fabiano Caruana's mother bleeping Chessable course. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen for Fabiano Caruana's coming Chessable course? Yes, you can. And Fabiano Caruana is going to be recording his final videos for that course, probably in this studio where I sit right now. So, Fabi, email me, baby. We'll work it out. Any Hooters, where are we at right now? We are in... It's not a Nimzo, because we have a D pawn instead of a C pawn. It's a Queen's Gambit with some queens traded, but it's got a Nimzo-esque feel to it, because white has the bishop pair, white has the potential of the center. Everything about this says that white has a lot of Nimzo features, but the reason why it's better is because normally in the Nimzo you have the C pawn on C5 and the pawn on D6, and that actually makes these pawns weak. In this case, these pawns can eliminate their doubledness anytime. They might not even want to because they might be pressure for the queenside expansion. So this is a great position for Wesley because you have all the Nimzo features. You have the two bishops, you have the double pawn and space, and in this case, you're not worried about them being weaknesses. So that's actually a really instructive point that that's not a structure you want if you're black. D6 and C5 would have been favored, not what it is now. Although one thing to point out, even though this B6 pawn, B7 pawn is super weak, and the obviously good move is to play rook to B1. Obviously, that's the best move. Whoop. What would Danya say if he was here? Rook to B1. Whoop. Right? So, be patient when you have positional advantages. Squeeze your positional advantage. Use the color palette available to you on chess.com and squeeze your positional advantage. And at some point, good things will come to those who wait. But don't blunder your rook. Okay, what does white do in the meantime? Develop and get castled, put the king on f2. Levon was the one trying to figure out what to do, and he decides it's time to risk it to get rid of that b7 pawn biscuit, but that allows bishop. You can pull it off, then it was the right thing to do, right? If you can pull it off, it's the right thing to do. If you're watching us on Twitch and we're down, maybe refresh your screen. Either way, bishop to f4 is the right tactical move. He sacrifices the exchange. He's gone full Aronian. Aronian sacrificed the exchange in an earlier game in this match. It did not work out if you missed the memo. He sacrifices the exchange here. I think this is actually better than the other exchange sack, as excited as I was about it. In this case, at least you're taking advantage of the fact that white is not developed yet. And even after you play king e2, you still can't challenge the only open file on the board, at least for now. He plays e5, and so Levon is doing everything he can, and here comes Wesley. Just what the doctor ordered. Let me get the bishops off the board so that I can put the rook on b1, so that I can trade off the only tower you have, so I can dominate the only open file, and then win the game. He plays bishop takes. He will then take back, and then soon put the rook on b1. Levon has sacrificed an entire rook. Where's Levy Rosman when you need him? He sacrifices the rook, not in the most traditional fashion, but he's down a rook for a whole bunch of pawns. And don't kid yourself, this is terrible for black, but I freaking love it. Are you kidding me? He plays knight e5, but now the rooks can come to b1, and that's what he should play. Before moving the knight, he should play rook a to b1, or rook h2. Okay, he plays rook a to b1. Then he moves the knight, and this is just too many pieces. Your pawns are just not enough. You back up the bishop, and at some point you're going to coordinate. Although, you know what Wesley's considering? He's considering, okay, he plays here first, which is nice, because if the knight goes to d7, he'll trade. That forces the knight here, and he's just getting pieces off the board. Although it is a little scary. If you move the knight, at some point, black wants knight d3 and then c2. What is going on? He refuses to make the obvious capture. Levon Aronian refuses to ever recapture in the obvious way. Tell me you're not entertained by this. Tell me you're not entertained. Levon Aronian, living off the edge, by the way. Living on a prayer, living on the edge, whatever Bon Jovi song. I'm pretty sure he had a song named both of those things. He's living on the edge of the clock was what I was trying to say. Has decent drawing chances here, actually. I mean, Obviously, white's up the exchange, but he has decent drawing chances. Yeah, check and king h6, and that puts the black king in a bit of a mating net. Here comes rook to g8. That's scary stuff. The king backs up. Still decent drawing chances, but he's living on the increment. Literally blunders his knight because he has no time. And you see that sort of kind of... Wesley's like, well, don't know what to say. Right? This is obviously running away and fast from Levon. Wesley plays the Pierce. An opening you normally play for black when you're trying to win, and you need a win. So, kind of an obscure choice from Wesley, although he might also just be saying, I'm up 6 games in the match, and I'm not super stressed right now. Plus, there's a very good chance this is our last blitz game before we get to bullet. So, unless the miracle of all miracles, the miracle on the 64 squares. What is the miracle on something street? Miracle on 64th Street? Is that what it's called? Because that would actually be a cool little subtle chess reference. Miracle on 64th Street. That would be what Levon Aronian is looking for. I believe in Santa Claus if I'm Levon Aronian in that movie. Yeah. Right now, it's super tough. He is going to have an advantage in this position. And again, I do question the choice of opening from Wesley. And note that Levon didn't mess around. He's still trying to win. Like, if you're wondering about a system to play against the Pierce, like objectively, the Austrian, if we want to back up real quick and show it, the Austrian, which is defined as f4, this is where the deepest preparation is, and white, you know, gets really aggressive and sharp positions and has an advantage. They try to flex, and that's the move f4. So if you want to put the time in, if you want to put the work into an opening repertoire, you probably have your biggest potential advantages in this structure. So Levon does go for the main line. Just pointing that out, and it's paying off right now. He has a nice position as white. He can take this pawn. I think he wins a pawn if he takes this. So a little bit of momentum going his way in the form of a win. If he can convert his advantage here, would be nice headed in a bullet. Yeah, Levon has a slight advantage out of the opening. Thank you, chat, for that. For the first time in a while. He hasn't had a lot of those today. That's the truth. He chooses not to take on d6. He played bishop c4. Wait a second. Is there something tricky? I want to do things like this. Okay, he plays e6. e6 is also a fun move here. It threatens the bishop on g7, and if you take c3, I take f7 with check. That's an in-between move, and then I recapture. So, again, a small advantage for white. I think you're going to have to do that. You can't take e6 because you lose the bishop, and you certainly don't want to play f6. So I think we're going to see bishop takes c3, takes f7 with check, king to f8, white will recapture. And then the question is, how big is that advantage really for white, right? This is what I predicted because, okay, he plays knight a4. I was going to say he could have even considered taking on f3, even though he didn't. And again, despite the extra pawn, I'm not sure that it's a huge advantage for white. Because there's some positional catastrophes here. The biggest question is, how do you coordinate before white gets really, really wild? Or maybe there's a rook ending in the future. If we go to the rook ending and maybe white has an advantage there, we'll see. So, Levon Aronian again has, I would say, played the better chess in the 3-minute portion, but besides big blunders, right? And no one likes big blunders, and they cannot lie. Okay? No chess player can deny. If you walk in with a good position, right, but you got big blunders in your face, that's not a good thing. Okay? And again, this has not been the match with the highest amount of drama that we could expect, right? That's the unfortunate truth. And yeah. All right. Well, Levon wants to get this win. We'll just try to learn from the chess and see what's going on. We will see what's going on. Yeah. Sorry about that. Well, if anyone can hear me on Twitch, apologies for that. We have some difficulties today. Not been the best show, but we're still live on YouTube, so there you go. Okay. You like that. You like that rhyme, Christopher Opstad, on YouTube. You liked it. You don't want to like it, but you do. Not even everyone gets the song reference I was quoting. So, so you're trying to pretend like you didn't like that Sir Mix-a-Lot freestyle chess remix, but you did, and it pains you a little bit. It's like every time I make an awkward dad joke. You want to be mad, but there's a part of you. It's like you're trying to frown on a jet ski, right? No matter how hard you try. And then you're just smiling at the end, no matter how hard you try. You can't help but appreciate the cringeness, and I get it. So we continue here. Will Levon Aronian find some way to convert an advantage? He's going for a position where at least the bishop is better than the knight, but the problem is that c5 is so... Oh, this is nice. Bishop g4. Okay. Bishop g4. How do you deal with e6? You give it up, Wesley says. But I like this move rook takes. It prevents rook c8. You can have a check with the rook if that was the case. And the rook gets itself in a much more active spot. Bishop takes e6 might have allowed rook e8 with a pin. So instead, we're headed for a rook ending where unfortunately White's pawn advantage is probably not enough. But he's going to try his absolute darndest. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know why that was so easy for black. The computer must have had one good move there, but that was actually, if you took it and put the rook on the 7th rank and you pushed the h-pawn, the rook would come right back and fork the pawn. So I actually don't know how that was going to be held for Wesley, and I give a shout out to Levon because this is a really tough position, and if he wins this game, we will be headed to the bullet once again with some momentum kind of favoring Aronian, but it just hasn't been enough. And I'm saying all of this hoping we don't get another one-move blunder of the queen if we're Levon Aronian. Excuse me on that. Plays king to b3, and indeed Wesley So doesn't even want to continue the fight on or look for his opportunity to get a blunder. He says, I will take my 5-game lead into bullet. Wait, they didn't know it was over. Now they do. They are aware that that game was the last of our Blitz segments here in today's Speed Chess Championship match, brought to you by Coinbase. Wesley So, if you would have asked him at home if he would be happy with a 5-game lead, well, I think he would take it, right? I think that's what he would say. The momentum, again, in a lot of ways, has been favoring Levon Aronian. He's played well and then just made huge blunders in some of the biggest moments. So, is 5 games outside of the realm of a comeback? No. Have we ever seen it before? No. Right? But we certainly have seen runaway trains happen, and we've seen momentum get away from someone. So, if I was you, I wouldn't go anywhere. And if I was you, I would also consider checking out our ChessKid.com Youth Speed Chess Championship. We've been doing these events for a long time, and there's a lot of players who've competed in these events who've gone on to become world-class players. So you never know whether you're looking at a champion of tomorrow. Join Chess Kid for the highly anticipated conclusion of the 2023 Youth SCC. It's tomorrow, September 6th. Candidate Master Aaron Mendez goes against Antoni Rads Imski. Rads will be his nickname in high school. Rads and Mendez going for the crown with Fun Master Mike and friends calling the action. Use the command YSCC to learn more. All right, we are going to learn what Levon Aronian still has left in the tank. Will he make it close? Will he do the improbable? At some point, someone's going to do it. Will it be today? We're going to find out. Don't go anywhere. It's our second match of the 2023 Speed Chess Championship. Its conclusion when we return.
Kid is fun. Chess is great for the brain, but it's also fun to play. And Chess Kid makes it easy to have fun. Whether your child is a total beginner or a prodigy, they can hop on and find a well-matched opponent from around the world at any time. Chess Kid is the safe, parent-approved way for your child to play chess online. Chess Kid is educational. To kids, it feels just like playing, but chess is a great way to learn patience, strategy, and critical thinking. Chess Kid features a comprehensive training program that guides kids to level up on their way to mastery. There are more than 50,000 chess puzzles and a whole library of entertaining videos that teach strategies, tactics, openings, and endgames specifically for kids. Chess Kid is easy. Whether you're a parent helping your child, a coach managing dozens of kids, or a school of hundreds. Signing up is free and easy, so what are you waiting for?
Did you know you can add emoji to your online games and analysis boards? Simply click on the emoji palette icon, select your emoji, and left-click on the board. You can choose from a host of notations, animations, emoticons, and even your favorite chess personalities. Emoticons will fade away after a few seconds. However, notations and special animations remain on the board until they are cleared. To clear them, simply left-click on the emoji or hit the Clear All button at the bottom of the palette. Have fun. Try them all on chess.com.
Speed Chess Championship presented by Coinbase here in the year 2023 rolls on. It's been an interesting second match that we had. If you missed it, Hikaru Nakamura took down Yu Yang Yi yesterday. Today we've had Wesley So and Levon Aronian, and we predicted a close one, but it really hasn't been that way. All of that said, we are actually sitting at a 5-game deficit currently for Levon Aronian, which is less games than he was trailing about an hour ago. So as we head into Bullet, what are we going to have in store? We're going to find out. And I want to set the table again, because we've been talking about it all day. These two guys have never played in Bullet on chess.com. They've never played in the SCC either. And with increment, that means that the best chess usually matters more than flagging. So if you look at a guy like Levon Aronian, who plays less Bullet than Wesley So, there's a chance here. Again, 5 games statistically is not outside of the realm of possibility, even if it hasn't happened. We have seen people come back from 5 games to tie up matches, in fact. And we have seen sometimes as many as 10 or 11 Bullet games played. I think the average total Bullet games tends to be around 8 or 9, if I'm remembering our stats correctly. But if you get that many games, if you can get 10 to 11 games, you get one lucky break, who knows? So I'm excited to see what happens. Right now, Wesley So we got a little bit of an eval bar thing there. I just fixed it. There we go. Now we're back online. There we go. So sorry about that. Wesley So was not winning. The eval bar was just a little bit frozen in time. Where we're at now is, in fact, Levon Aronian is winning, and he's just played a brilliant move with knight to g4, because the trade of the knight for the dark square bishop is a phenomenal one. And when you combine that with his edge on the clock, I'm just saying, I've been saying it, but I'm saying don't go anywhere. This match is not over, okay? Bullet has to be played for a reason. If it was over, we would have called it, and I don't think Levon Aronian intends to go quietly into the night. So, right now, he has an advantage. He's got dominance on the second rank. He's got a c4 pawn that he can target, along with this rook here. But what to play in this position? How do you keep your edge? Knight to d3. Apparently, that's how you do it. And then you trade. And after pawn takes, now the king is open. Knight takes f2. What a move. If queen takes d6, you have knight h3 intermezzo. He finds it, and black steals the pawn, along with opening up the second rank. This is, although white is recovering a little bit, so shout out to Wesley for resourcefully keeping track. The problem is that his king is in a mating net, and it's hard to keep finding the best moves when you have less than 10 seconds, and your opponent has pressure on the second rank. So I think Levon Aronian is about to get the first game in our Bullet portion, which means before you know it, we still got 27 minutes left, and it's a 4-game match. All they do is blame me for overhyping it. That's all they do. Are you ready for a thriller? I'm asking, right? We'll see. We'll see. Again, given the evidence, the data we had available to us, even though they had not played in Bullet, I would have said Wesley has got to be the favorite in Bullet, because we've seen him play a lot more Bullet. And he's also up 4 games still. But again, if you're just tuning in, this match was 7 games in favor of So, and felt like he could do nothing wrong. We are now in a position where, again, for some reason, I apologize for that, our eval bar is not immediately updating upon the new game. I'll make sure I fix that going forward. And here we go. We have a position that's roughly equal. Levon is up on the clock. So it's funny. I mean, I guess we've seen one game between Aronian and So and Bullet. And so far, it's been pretty dominant for Levon Aronian. Not only did he win that last game, he also had a huge time advantage. So perhaps these predictions that Wesley So would be the favorite in Bullet will ultimately prove to be crazy. We're going to see. Levon Aronian doesn't play as much Bullet as some other players online, and so it's hard to predict what he's capable of. B4, what an interesting move. A common kind of trick, actually, inducing en passant, because the A file would actually favor white. So black doesn't capture en passant, and instead Wesley focuses on the D file. Makes sense. Double the rooks on the D file. The A3 pawn is weak in a lot of positions. Watch out for that. I guess Levon is saying, yeah, but so is the A4 pawn. At some point, you might even see knight to B2. In fact, you see it now. And here comes c4 if you play b5. So Levon getting that small edge. You see that engine just kind of creeping his direction. c5, is he going to play c6? That feels a little too risky. OMG, he does it. And again, the computer says that was a little too risky. That puts a pawn one square further than is protected. And that might come back to bite Levon. We'll see. But he's got to play for the win, right? I mean, here's the deal. He doesn't want 4 minutes to go off the clock due to increment and draw. And let's call it like it is. I mean, obviously, we're interested in a close match. Are we going to get it? If you're a Wesley So fan, you're like, I'm not so interested in a close match at this point, Dan. I'd like Wesley to win one and put it away. But the point is, Levon knows he has to win. Death to this match is a bunch of draws that just take 4 minutes off the clock with every game, right? And so you got to give him credit for a move like c6 and the fight he's bringing, even if it loses him the battle. And just like that, Wesley So dominates the second rank, and Levon might lose this battle. There's a mating net coming here, boys and girls. Rook d2 is coming, and that king is going to be mated. Okay, he actually didn't go for it, but I wonder what would have happened. Oh, he's just giving up. Rook d2's mate on the next move. Rook d3. I said it was happening. I called it. It happened. Joshua Chamberlain lives. For those OG viewers of Twitch or YouTube who get that reference, shout out to you. All right. Wow. Wesley So stops the bleeding for himself. He had lost a few games and actually had felt like he had lost quite a bit of momentum. So that win was massive. Am I calling it? Not yet. I'm not calling it just yet. I'm going to refresh our eval, and we're back to a 50-50 game here. But again, let's not underestimate how huge that was. Yeah. Huge stuff, and at this point, Wesley So has put Levon's back against the wall. I will say this. Wesley So gets one more game and it's over, right? Especially if another 3 minutes comes off the clock with it, because you get in that territory where the math is no good. And this comes from a guy who hardly even believes in math. I don't do math good, I don't like math good, and I don't even talk about math good, as is evidenced by what the words that are coming out of my mouth, okay? But the point is, the math is no good for Levon if he loses one more. And even a draw, as much as I hate it, at least keeps him within striking distance. This game going okay for him. He's got this 2-on-1 pawn majority, which in an endgame matters. Eventually that gives you better chances for a queen. But yeah. Yeah. Levon's got pressure. What happened here? The bishops have gotten loose. He's hitting the rook, and the a3 pawn's going to fall next. Just like that, Levon Aronian is moving the chains the right direction, right? He's moving up the field. One first down after another is how you get a touchdown here, and that's all he can do. He's up the exchange. This is going to be a win. The only question for this is how quickly can he do it. He doesn't want to bleep around, as the kids would say. No bleeping around. Every second matters, because he's not just facing the enemy known as Wesley So. He's facing that clock, which says 21 minutes above him right there. For those who might just be tuning in, this is a Speed Chess Championship match where you have the countdown clock that you have to beat. And he has a 5-game deficit to overcome. 12.5, 7.5. All right, so again, he's going to win, but shout out to Wesley So for understanding the meta, and there's no reason to be a gentleman anymore. Wesley appreciates that Levon has woken up. Wesley appreciates that Levon is capable of a comeback, and he's not going to resign this game despite being down a rook. If he can get another minute off the clock, he would do it, right? And shout out to Levon, who gets the job done. But look at Wesley playing it all the way out to checkmate. That's what you do to protect your lead. Again, that's not poor sportsmanship. We've talked about it a lot. The meta of the Speed Chess Championship gives us all those great sports analogies that we love, because you have to use the clock as a weapon against your opponent. And that's exactly what Wesley So is doing here. Wesley So is doing here. Okay. We're back at it. Levon Aronian only down by 4 games. And will he win and make it 3? Not what Wesley So wants. We're back to an Italian. I will make an observation that Danya would have made if he was still with us. Wesley avoided playing e5 the entire day. You notice that? You notice that? Now he's playing e5 in the bullet. That's interesting. If Wesley wins the match, we will talk to him about that. Obviously, if Levon wins the match, we're talking about the greatest comeback in the history of the SCC. But that's an interesting choice by Wesley So. He played the Sicilian. He even played the French, much to my criticism. But now Wesley So is playing e5, and he's inviting the Italian against Levon, and that's an interesting match strategy, right? Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. And that's good stuff. Okay. Levon knows his Italians very, very well. And so that might be part of it. We saw Levon even tried to reach an Italian, basically, with this Udawson Sicilian against Wesley Sicilian. So it makes sense that Wesley just wasn't interested in positions that Levon really, really loves. But I just shout out to the fact that he managed to avoid it all the way to the bullet. That takes work to really be that thoughtful about the openings you're bringing to the table. Okay, so we have this Italian structure where the deadlock here has occurred. They're moving so fast I can hardly highlight. Here comes Harry. H4 gets involved. Wesley might try to turn the tables on that idea. Knight F4. I was wondering, is he going to do it? Knight F4. If pawn takes, there was queen to G4. Wesley So says, I'm going to punish you for opening up the king, and I'm going to put this match away right here, right now. If I get another dub, you can ship it. Clip it and ship it. And I'm going on to the next round. Wesley So is trying to punish White for that open king. And he's also now up a pawn, if you're doing your math. 18 seconds for Wesley, 29 seconds for Levon. F6 taking advantage of the pin on the E-file. I'm getting nervous. I'm feeling the comeback slip between my fingers if I'm Levon Aronian. This game cannot go Wesley's way. Under 18 minutes with a 5-game lead, I think that's going to be too much. Here we go. Queen C2, Czekaruski. King to 8. No, king to G1. Rook F. Okay, look out for Queen F2. That would be Czekalina La Shlamba, which is French for La Bamba, which is checkmate. So Queen E3, he hits the rook, backs up the queen. Now the queen slides to G6, hitting G3. And look at the game of Tickle. Wesley is just poking one weakness after another, and he's doing it under 10 seconds on the clock. Levon is holding on for dear life. The eval bar's creeping back up. If this game goes Wesley So's way, I think it's over. Here comes G4. I think he wants it. Oh no, Rook F1. That also threatens knight. Okay, no. Queen G6 keeps the rook defended. There is no discovered check. By the way, knight E7 check and queen to F8. Oh, it didn't work. Queen takes G3 at the end. Would have been good for black. What a move. Okay, Wesley So is holding on. This is going to be an eval bar heart attack. No judgments. We are in a judgment-free zone for the rest of this match. No one is allowed to judge them for blunders anymore because this is bullet, this is fun, and it's crazy. Okay, Wesley does look like he pulls it off. He wins the G4 pawn, and with it, everyone's falling apart. Wesley doesn't even need the win. He would take the draw at this point, but he's going to get more than that. I think he'll find a way. Is he going to take the draw or does he want more? He wants more. He should. I mean, winning this game puts away the match. If you're Wesley, you got to go for it, and you do it. And just like that, Wesley regains his once 5-game lead, but now there's only 16 and a half minutes left. And I think that's it. And we see Wesley going a little more wild on his openings now after that. Wow, that was brutal. The only way I'm wrong from here is literally every single game is won by Levon. So, like I said, calling the match there, every single game from here on out would have to be a win, and it would probably include a victory that comes as time expires. Just knowing how these things break down, the fact that Levon has 2 opponents, Wesley So and the 15 minutes counting down above him. So, someone asking if Levon misclicked there. I don't think so. I think the position was overpressed by White. Naturally so, because he had to win. But Wesley did exactly what he was supposed to do, right? You respect when you play someone who's world-class, that when they're losing, they don't get more timid, right? They're like a caged animal, and they come at you, bro. Come at me, bro. So Wesley and all of these guys are used to winning when their opponent is bringing the heat. And Wesley held his nerves. You got to give Levon credit for bringing it. But yeah. And my apologies. I'll update the eval bar. Not sure why that's happening. But there we go. That's an interesting comment by BLEYD in Twitch chat. Bullet is more like esports than any other part of chess. It's probably true, right? Bullet is the only format that probably doesn't equate well to over the board, OTB, as chess players say, which by definition I think is proving the point saying it the other way. Bullet is the only game that really doesn't look good over the board because it's, you know, you're sloppy, you're doing the pieces, no one wants that. Bullet is made for online chess. And therefore, as an online game, you would equate it to other esports. And also, not something we refer to often in chess, but your actions per minute, right? Your clicks per minute, your actions per minute. Actions per minute is certainly something that matters in other esports as far as how fast people are with the mouse, for those who don't speak esports good. And I would say that Bullet, more than any other game, matters in regards to your pure mouse speed. So yeah, that's a good comment. I'm going to agree with that shout out. Bullet is esports chess at its finest. Every other time control, you could argue, is just as playable over the board. In some ways, maybe online is better. In some ways, over the board is better. But it's just as playable. But Bullet is online. It's online. Classical is over the board, right? Classical is your over the board kind of only. No one really likes playing 6-hour games staring at a computer screen. So let's say that Classical is for over the board only and Bullet is for online only. Everything else in between, you have experiences that can go both ways. All right. Right now, Wesley So, speaking of going both ways, he just won his black. He's on his way to winning his white. Okay, but hold on. Only a few seconds. Levon is on the... oh! Bishop C3 check! Wesley walked into it! Knight F3 check was better. Knight F3 would have won the whole rook. Oh my god. Knight F3 check would have won... oh no, because then King D1, the rook on E8 hangs. What a crazy little sequence there. Oh my god. Aronian wins and keeps this thing alive. Only 13 minutes. Wesley shakes his head like, what in the actual bleep was that, right? That game was crazy AF. Where is Fabiano when you need him? Is he still in chat? Fabi's here. That was crazy AF. Crazy as Fabi. Yeah. Wow, what a game. Okay, we're in a Panoff structure now. This is a Panoff Botvinnik, Panoff Modern, according to the chess.com ECO. But yeah, this is a Panoff structure where white has this 4-on-3 on the queen side. Black has a better pawn structure on the king side, not even just because of the double pawns, but because black can at some point strike with e5, and they look to do so in a lot of positions. It undermines the center, undermines the 3-on-2 majority, and you hope that it opens up the bishop and creates the knight. So you see Wesley So does exactly what I predicted. This is the way black should... Knight d4. What's going on? What was the move? Knight takes f3 was the move, followed by queen g4 check. Both players missed. Knight takes f3 check, followed by queen g4 for black. The nerves have set in. I think Wesley So really knows now that if he wins one more, it's over, right? So now, given that he just lost the last game, he's got to keep himself focused, keep himself in it, and this is a crazy one. I play a lot of these positions for white, or I did at one time when I was a real chess player. But this one seems like it's gone pretty well for black. If black gets this e5 structural change as Wesley did, we know he could have had this winning tactic, but even here, it feels pretty good for black. The 3-on-2 is a long-term edge in the end game. It's not something you see in the middle game, although what just happened there? He just blundered the d4 pawn. Now we'll play b4, and he's got the 3-on-2. Well, that didn't go as planned. All of a sudden, Levon is back in control. If he wins this one, we're down to a 3-game match, and it's not over. It's not over. Okay, rook d6, king h7. That was threatening rook takes g6. Okay, at some point, I want to play f4. Okay, I could when the queen was there, but not anymore. Levon backs up. Will he go for f4 now? It's the move I've been looking for. Yeah, I think it's... Okay, finally. Like I was going to say, like, at some point I want to play f4 because the rook is trapped. And finally f4 was played. All right. Levon wins the rook. He's going to win the f5 pawn to go with it next. And he should just be able to take and clean this one up. And again, we have a match. Wesley's going to let his time run, as he should. Nope, walks into mate, but same thing. At this point, Wesley is just trying to keep the dogs back for 10 minutes. The problem with that mindset is that's not how Wesley So plays his best chess, right? Wesley So plays his best chess, you know, carefree, in the moment, and confident. A confident Wesley So is maybe the best player in the world at times. I mean, the guy is on another level when he's confident. But when things are running away from him a little bit, this is an opportunity for him to right the ship, to keep his head in the game. One more win for Levon, and you're getting nervous. You're down to 2 games, and we have seen comebacks there. Everyone remembers Jan Krzysztof Duda. I say that like everyone here remembers. Everyone remembers Jan Krzysztof Duda completing a 2-game comeback as time expired against Alexander Grishuk. And he would go on to win that match in overtime. I'm not sure why my voice talks like this when I refer to this, but if you missed that match, that was one where you had a 2-game deficit with 6 minutes left. And Jan Krzysztof, 4 minutes left. He won, and then he barely started the next game as time expired, won that game to force an overtime, and then beat Grishuk in overtime. If you didn't see that match, that was the one where Mom ran out of the room and gave Jan Krzysztof a big hug. The mom hug match. Yeah, so it has happened. Call your friends. I'm just saying it's happened. Right now, we got an equal position. Wesley So bringing some pressure. This is a big one here. This is a big one. Right? You get this one, you're back in controllable territory. Yeah, you get this one, you're back in controllable territory. What is going on? Does Levon know he's time? It makes... Okay, I was going to say, like, whenever that happens in online chess, you sit here and think that there's a bug, right? But there was no bug. He just literally used a whole bunch of time to figure out what to do there. You think of players disconnecting, or you think there's a problem, but no. Levon, I don't know how else to say it. That feels like gross time mismanagement there to play the obvious move. And now, regardless of the eval bar slightly favoring white, he's got 10 seconds left. This is not good. No, you do not have to win by 2, unlike the Bullet Chess Championship. Good question in chat. You do not have to win by 2 in the SCC. H5 is played. I will say this, regardless of the time, I think that Levon's position is slightly to be preferred in the practical aspect of Bullet. I know you're saying that's ridiculous, right? The B pawn is weak, the D pawn is here. But the reason is that the queen and knight are super dangerous as a duo, especially when you don't have a lot of time. They get nasty real quick, right? The moment you make one blunder, the queen and knight launch a mating net that you can't stop. And so this is a practical game that makes you very nervous if you're Wesley So. And here comes the black king. Uh-oh. Wait a second. Knight had to part ways with the pawn. You win b2. f7 is falling. Who is better here and why? I don't know. Queen e6 check. If Wesley So wins this game, we'll be down to 6 minutes, and it'll be back to a deficit that is simply unovercomable. Unfortunately for Levon Aronian, as exciting as he has made the bullet, and you have to give him props for that. This is not one, and with that, the queens come off the board. And just like that, Wesley So will be punching his ticket to the next round. Yeah. Wow. Well, you got to give Levon credit. This is a 4-game deficit with 5 minutes left. It's not enough time. Not enough time. And yeah, this has been fun, though. I got to admit, given how this match started and given the up and down nature of the day, Levon gave us a finish here. So shout out to Levon, and also shout out to Wesley So for keeping his nerves together, right? Winning when it mattered most, and shutting the door, as you say, on the comeback. What's that scene where, like, you're hoping that Al Pacino as Michael in The Godfather is going to be a good person in the end? Am I about to ruin Godfather? Raise your hand in chat if you've seen Godfather. If I get a bunch of hands raised, then we're going to talk about this scene. If everyone is like, Danny, shut up, I haven't seen it, then you get a different lecture, which is, what are you doing with your life if you're not seeing the greatest film of all time? Okay, of course you've seen it 50 times. That's why we hired you, okay? We don't hire mods who haven't seen The Godfather 50 times. That's a fact, okay? Yeah. You haven't seen The Godfather? God, that just tells you the demographic of chat. You got a bunch of 12-year-olds breaking Twitch terms of service watching the show, right? Pretending to be 18 in chat. You know, there you go. Any Hooters. All right, fine. I won't talk about it. But the point is, there's an iconic moment where someone shuts the door on something, and the symbolism there is so deep. And then it gives way for the maybe the greatest sequel of all time. You could argue The Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1, so watch it. But anyway, Wesley So shut the door. I lost my focus. I didn't even update the eval bar. Not sure what's happening there, everybody. But yeah. Yeah. Aronian wins, and I'm excited about it. But unfortunately, with 2 minutes left, there's a very good chance that you're looking at the last game of this match, depending on how it goes. And that's it. It's been gut-wrenching. You're not wrong. It's been gut-wrenching. You know, nothing like watching a chess show hosted by a tool. You know. Anyway, I'm sitting here thinking of some good questions here for Wesley So. We will definitely interview our winner. Unfortunately, one of these two men coming into today's match was going to have their streak of always getting out of the first round broken. It was Levon Aronian. I think he was the favorite by everyone's account. Sorry, I think Wesley So was the favorite by everyone's account. They got it right. But I'm not going to lie, even if you could argue the final score is sort of as advertised, maybe 3 or 4 games for Wesley So, we didn't get there in the way we thought. Levon knows he didn't have his best chess. He would be the first to admit it. And Wesley So got the job done, played fantastic, and he'll be dancing in the second round of the SCC. It's winner go home when it comes to the Speed Chess Championship. So, brought to you by Coinbase. F4 played. Again, this is the kind of game that could just end the match, right? Wesley could literally get another 3.5 minutes out of this game if he wanted to, and he only needs to get a minute off the clock. Okay, Levon might take the draw, and if so, we do get one more. In this case, now Wesley can literally just let his clock run out, and the match is over. But he won't do that. We'll get one more fun game here for the fighting spirit of it all. And we're going to make sure we break down what was our savvy move of the day, brought to you by Coinbase. I got to start thinking about that. It's going to be fun. I think I got some good examples of where Wesley So was savvy AF. He was savvy AF today. And I'm pretty sure Coinbase would like me referring to their sponsored moment as Savvy AF. You want to be Savvy AF? You manage your crypto on Coinbase. That's how you're Savvy AF. Okay, you can clip that and ship that. And if the kids are asking, what does AF mean? It obviously means Savvy as Fabi. Because if you haven't seen, Fabiano Caruana was the first chess influencer to ever do a Coinbase read. Shout out to Fabiano. Oh, you haven't seen that video? You should probably check it out. There you go. And we're going to check it out in just a minute. And we're going to get Wesley So's thoughts before we wrap this one to a close. Good thing for y'all. Did I just say y'all? Did I just say y'all? Good thing for y'all. That just came out of my mouth. The SCC has only just begun. We got a lot more matches ahead. Levon Aronian might get a win for good measure here. I do enjoy a battery on the dark square diagonal. I do enjoy it. There you go. That's nice. Rookie 2 hits the queen. Rook double the rooks. I love it. The pressure is real. Now you relocate to hit d6. That's what you do when your opponent makes a new weakness. You regroup and find a new way to target it. Okay, he goes for the pawn, which also works. He's going to be up a oh, wait a second. c2 falls in the end unless there's something. Wesley shakes his head there. He missed something. If you take on e2 and take on f6 in the end, c2 hangs, and that's why Levon finds this move. Wow, what a move. g4 first. Intermezzo, you hit the bishop, but then queen e7 comes. And maybe in the end, Wesley is like, it's all smoke and mirrors. I still got the draw. I'm gonna get my queen down here, and I'm gonna do some work and go for a bunch of perpetual checks and just draw the game, right? Give me peace. Obviously, there's some pressure here from Levon. He does have the passed h-pawn. But if I had to guess, our final game of today's SCC match ends the way it started, with a draw. And Wesley So moves on to compete in the next round, the round of 8. That's what's going to happen. It's already official. The time is up. And we are moving on to our next matchup. And if you're wondering when that is, it is tomorrow, by the way. So, the Speed Chess Championship continues tomorrow. We're going to talk about who's playing here in just a second. But as I said, I predict this one will end in a draw. Wesley So is trying to prove me right, doing his best to do so. Actually, maybe I'm wrong. Is he going to get a win? No, he'll get a draw. I think Levon recognizes that it's time to give up the ghost, and Wesley So takes today's matchup by a final score of 15.5 to 12.5. So there's the smiling man. He does it. He holds on. He gets the job done. Maybe a little more nerve-wracking for him than he wanted to admit toward the end, because at one point he had a 7-game lead, if you just tuned in. But ultimately, he does win by a final score of 3 games instead of 7 games. The final score, 15.5 to 12.5. So, yeah, it's funny. You look at that scoreboard, and the final score looks great. The 5-minute portion blows your mind. Wesley So took a 7.5, 1.5 lead. And even though there was drama at different points, and I think both players gave us some really great chess at different times, you can't go down 6 games in the 5-minute portion and live to talk about it, right? You just can't. It just doesn't happen here. And Wesley So, even if he was the favorite, and ultimately the final score is very reflective of a smarter chess prediction. I don't know how he does it every single time. It was not how we predicted it getting there, and Wesley So, he gets the job done. So let's take a look at our bracket when we get a chance here and talk about what that means. We have Hikaru Nakamura, who already defeated Yu Young-yi, as we talked about, those of you who saw that yesterday. Now Wesley So defeats Levon Aronian, and he'll be moving on into the round of 8, joining Hikaru as the first player to do that. And we got a lot more ahead. So let's look at these matchups. Wesley So will take on the winner of Firouzja and Andrekin. Nakamura awaits the winner of Fabiano Caruana and Abdusa Turov. But so many exciting matchups there. You've got Nihal versus Serrana, Vache Legrave versus Gukesh, Carlsen, Vidit. It's going to be epic. Ding Liren and Arjun Iragaisi. And as we already said, Firouzja versus Andrakin. So, wow. That was really great. I'm going to pull up our savvy move of the day. And I'm working on that right now. And we'll see if I can... Oh, that was the opposite order. That's not what we want. I'm trying to find that game. Maybe the team can help me out here. Trying to find that game. I'm looking. I'll get it in just a second. Yeah. Yeah. This is right here. I got it. I got our savvy move. And you know who's savvy? I mean, first of all, I'm savvy for figuring that out in real time. But investors who use Coinbase are savvy. That's because Coinbase is the future. It's time to update your system and be a savvy investor with all your crypto needs. And we're going to take a look at this savvy move. There were a whole bunch of moves we could choose. I'm not going to lie that Wesley So put on a show for us today. We were a bit spoiled for choice. But I wanted to pull up this one here. And this whole game gave us some really, really interesting moments. We were applauding this whole idea that really starts right here. This is the move I'm awarding the savviness to. After Queen A1, Knight E8, and then Queen to D2. A subtle move that slides over and threatens Queen H6 check. Danya, who was still with us at that time before the audio took over, showed that after any move here, you get this check. You note that there is no Queen to G7 because the knight guards it. And after King to G8, you remove the knight to clearance sacrifice the E8 square for business. So that threat, after this very subtle and savvy move, Queen to D2, led to Rook to B8 with an attempt to defend this idea, right? You guard the back rank. And then Queen to F4. It comes with a brilliant symbol because investors who use Coinbase are brilliant. It hits the Rook. It threatens Queen to D6 check. And it reminds you that if you found a way to deal with both those, now that I'm guarding F6, I can also move the knight to F6 first, blocking the queen's diagonal and renewing the idea of queen to H6. So this whole little sequence of moves here that starts with this queen to D2 shuffle is just awesome. And there you go. That was our savvy move of the day. Hope you enjoyed it. Little instructive stuff. And with that, we bring this one to a close and start looking ahead to tomorrow. Wednesday's match has Nihal Sarin versus Alexei Serrana. Nihal Sarin was the name most people missed in the Bullet Chess Championship. Right? People were screaming. They blamed us. Hey, guess what? Nihal Sarin was invited. All right, we did our job, and we did our job again by inviting Nihal Sarin to the SCC, and this time he accepted it. I think a lot of people are curious what that young man can do in this year's event, although I shouldn't necessarily take for granted his opponent, right? He is facing Alexei Serrana, who, Alexei Serrana is also one of the most feared names in the game, especially when it comes to online chess. So not looking past Serrana is what Nihal Sarin should do. But if he does get by him, he's not someone that a lot of people are excited about playing. He's a dangerous foe. That's why he was so missed in the Bullet Chess Championship. But all right, Nihal Sarin was missed. Let me remind you of what you don't want to miss, because we got so many big events happening right now in the chess world. If you haven't been following the biggest collab you didn't know you needed, but you absolutely love, Supercell and Chess.com have come together for an exciting partnership. We're doing all kinds of stuff. You can play bots at Chess.com's Playverse computer. You can join fan clubs. You can also tune in to watch this incredible event where Chess and Clash, we've got Chess and Clash challenges together. It's featuring some of your favorite creators. You see them right there. We got Botez, we got Gotham, you got Clash with Ash, you got Sapnap, and more. They're all going to battle it out in this ultimate strategy game competition. Which clan will prevail? Tune in to Chess Clash on September 7th. I will be in Paris commentating on that with Ludwig and going to have a blast. So I'm actually flying on a plane tomorrow. So tune in on September 7th to see some of your favorite creators throw down in this chess and clash battle. All right, and with it, I think that was our final battle today, right? This was a fun one, a bit of a bumpy road. If any of you were with us from the start to finish, we appreciate you sticking it out. Otherwise, hit the follow, hit the sub. If you found us at the last second, tune in tomorrow for the next Speed Chess Championship match. It is Sarin versus Sarana. And until then, the SCC returns tomorrow. We'll see you.